Set piece again, ole ole. Set piece again, ole ole. Alex, not joining in. Okay. Hello and welcome to episode 487 of the Spitballing Pod. I'm Luke Byron, joined as always by Tom Kennett, and this week joined by Alex Jones. This is always a big one for us, our Premier League review, and it's the happiest one for me so far, as Arsenal were finally crowned Premier League champions 22 years after they last achieved it. Tottenham stayed up, Sunderland got European football, Liverpool were there, Chelsea didn't get anything, and much more. We'll get into all of that and more. TK, AJ, how are we doing today?
Not nearly as well as you.
No. It could have been a lot worse for me.
Yeah, this could have been... that's probably the only way he could have been more ecstatic.
Yeah, we'll get into that for sure. It's been a good few days.
Quite
It's been a long
week,
day for me. At this point, if I stop, it would be a very different tone of pod. So we'll carry on right the way through. So, yeah, here we are. A lot of football's getting to. Last year, TK, you were at the parade. Happy start of the day for you. Jack, coming off the back of his stag do.
Didn't have it in him.
Quite insulted that we weren't there. But, hey, maybe me just mentioning that, people won't keep asking me why I wasn't on his stag do. I'm not offended. Those two weren't.
You're covering it well. He's covering it well.
But here we are. And we've got a very good episode to get into. Perhaps an odd way round of doing this, but if social media has shown me anything this season, it's that I might see a dip in the retention rates the second I start talking about Arsenal. So we'll get this in first.
I think there's a pretty big warning on on this one, isn't there? I think.
Yeah. Usually when the season comes to an end, we spend the next 10, 11 weeks trying some different things, whether that's drafts, whether that's what ifs, whether that's Premier League years, rankings, Hall of Fame debates, 3MPs, just anything else that we can come up with. There is obviously a World Cup this summer, so we'll have a preview podcast released on the 8th of June, and we'll be covering the tournament throughout. Ultimately, I think we've spoken a little bit, we're going to try and strike a balance between covering things as they go and doing some fun bits in between. If we think the Premier League season runs quickly and things move on fast, by the time we talk about a game from the World Cup, it could be 3 days have passed, and that's old news. So much is going to happen. We won't be able to cover it all in detail, but we're going to cover, I guess, if I don't want to pat ourselves on the back too much, we'll cover the things that are worth talking about, and then we'll have enough other bits in there for if you think on the Thursday, if you listen to the pod usually, oh my God, so much happens since then, there'll hopefully be enough to reel you in. So we'll have some more news on that soon. I think me and TK need to lock in some of the details. I know we've discussed a case race, a few other things, and we just basically need to lock in, I think, the third chair for a lot of these things as we go on. Let me get rid of this chewing gum. Very unprofessional. So what I did do is I had a whole host of emails come through at the back end of last week that was like, get back to us now, we're going to lose your place. And I'd forgotten how many Guinness World Records I had applied for back when we did the 24 challenge. So I've had a whole load of those back. They're still coming through. And so I did think, once I check the kind of finer print as to how easy it is to set up for these, it could be that at the very least, over the next 6 or 7 weeks, we have a world record challenge attempt every single week. And it can be me doing it. It can be TK doing it. I don't know how he's looking at me right now. It can be whoever's in that chair doing it. Some of the ones that we've had approval for, prawn toast one, not been approved yet. So if that's a weight off your back or if that's a burden for you to carry, I'm not sure which way around that goes.
Being hungry now, to be fair.
Some of them, and if you tell me how easy you think these are, because at the time of applying, I obviously thought that they were doable, or they didn't have a record and guideline at the time. Most fish fingers eaten in 1 minute is 10.
That feels doable, doesn't it?
It does feel doable. Now, what I would say, for some of the other ones I looked at, it's like you can't You can't double fist them, basically. It's like,
There's more than ways of describing that.
Just give her all a thumb.
It's like one at a time.
Dual wield would have been a nice word. Dual wield.
It's been a long day. It's been a long day. It's one at a time, which obviously does complicate that a little bit.
Okay.
But we'll see how that goes.
Even so, that seems...
Most pigs in blankets eaten in 1 minute is 20. Ask Keenan how he felt about that. That's where he seems to draw the line, I'll be honest. So,
I'd take the fish fingers over that challenge. I feel like the pigs in blanket might get heavy quite quickly.
Most Maltesers eaten in 3 minutes is 150. I don't know. I don't know if that's a lot or a little. 3 minutes just feels like such a long time for one of these things.
That feels like a lot.
I don't know how many you get in one of those like boxes.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I reckon that's quite a few boxes, you know.
Yeah.
Now, when I tell you that Keenan didn't fancy the pigs in blankets one, but thought he'd give a good go to the most chicken nuggets in 3 minutes, which is 791 grams, which is roughly 50 McNuggets.
Based on what I've seen, I'd back it. I wouldn't back against it.
Yeah.
Most cheese puffs eaten in 3 minutes is 46, which feels so easy to me when I look at that. And the most cream-filled biscuits eaten in 1 minute is 7. So if there's anyone that is a regular or has...
Like a custard cream?
Yeah. That's thoughts about being on the podcast before.
Feels like that's possible.
If you like the sound of any of those, if you just want to join us for the summer and talk some World Cup, then do hit my DMs. I can't guarantee you'll be on, but I can guarantee that we'll add you to the list. Is there anything you want to add on to all of that before we get into the football, TK? Obviously, a lot I've just given you there.
Yeah, I think we probably need to get to your moment, don't we? I think.
I'd say any eating challenges in this kind of heat is off the table.
It's a good point.
Unfortunately, it's not off the table because we do have to fill the summer.
Let's just hope it's not 33 degrees.
Everything is on the table.
We need a nice window. The track temperature needs to be.
I feel like the lots to eat challenges are different to the let's get this down in speed. Like, I don't know. Are you taking down 10 fish fingers any slower if it's the winter?
I'm thinking more about how you
that.
feel in the moment. Like, I suppose you're not going to get a reaction temperature-wise inside a minute, but I'm thinking more of the aftermath.
You do enough endurance challenges, you don't always get the conditions you want.
No, that's very true. It's very true.
We know what he's like when the conditions aren't ideal. We get back to wetsuit gate.
We could invest it to if we do think going colder is the way to go. We could invest in those ice jackets, which like the Formula One drivers and the cyclists all wear before. What a sight that would be!
So now you want to invest
for an eating challenge and wearing like the ice cooling jackets.
It's the highest budget thing about this whole podcast.
He had a bad arm once, and we've never heard the end of it. But anyway, if the eating challenges are difficult, by proxy, is a case race in the sun, does that suddenly become more palatable?
I think that's going to be quite difficult anyway.
You have a certain look in your eye each time I mention that. I feel like it was agreed, and then you give me a look that it wasn't agreed when I mentioned it.
Well, we never technically, got it formally agreed, did we?
I do have a question.
Alex can take your place by if he needs to.
My champion.
I do have a question. Wasn't there not really a Guinness World Record challenge, but who won your fantasy team? Not who won.
Draft.
Who lost your fantasy
Brad.
team?
Brad. So if all goes well, if he says he'll do it next weekend, I will accompany him to film that and get that for next week's episode. Knowing him as I feel that's going to be a last-minute job, and it's far closer to being next weekend that gets done if he doesn't try to ask for an extension beforehand.
I thought you were quite close to...
He got a little squeaky.
He was second bottom, but he won a crunch game against Brad, which then put it down to points difference with which he had...
Oh, okay.
If it was just down to points, I think he was like mid-table.
Me and Sean were like 4th and 5th, and yet we were like in a relegation dogfight throughout the whole thing. It made no sense.
But let's get on to the football. If anyone looks especially sweaty today, they are.
I've had a bath of sun cream, so if I was pale before on camera, you're just going to see, I don't know, you won't see anything, it's just a voice.
I probably should have had a bit more, but at a certain point, there's not much to fight against.
The shirt's bringing it out in you.
Well, I did first time wearing an Arsenal shirt. The other ones were a bit more trim, so I thought we'll go with this one today. It was the start of the title-winning Arsenal and the title chasing Arsenal, I should say. So it felt a good place to go in, and it's just a nice shirt. Adidas have done us filthy in the last couple of years. So here we are. Arsenal are Premier League champions. Something I've waited 22 years to see and hear again. Bournemouth drew 1-1 with City on Tuesday night. And in all honesty, they should have won by a wider margin. I don't know if you've seen any of the clips coming out of the Arsenal kind of watch party as it was. There's a reason they've not shown us when David Brooks missed. Because if it's anything like... The way my phone lit up with Arsenal fans in that moment, almost none of the messages can be repeated. And we said some filthy things on here.
I'm confident of that, yeah, from what I saw.
Semenyo must have texted him for another favour. So after Haaland gave me a fright and there was 90 seconds or what left after that.
I mean, the squad reaction to that is going to become a meme for sure. Rice and all those just looking shocked. It's definitely memeable.
The way I was watching the game is I put the game on and I was just terrified. I had it on for a few minutes and City at least went close early on. And so from there, they were running through and I thought, let me see if they've scored and put myself out of my misery. And so I had that on and they hadn't scored. And so really, I was laid out where TK is now. I had the game on the TV, but I had my phone in front of me. And I was largely watching the game second by second through the Bet365 in play screen. Not the actual screen where I can see dangerous attack, just where I can see if a goal has gone in or nothing has happened.
Fucking hell.
And
Whilst updating on Twitter as well, by the way. He's doing a countdown of the minutes.
Well, I was trying to jinx it. I was trying to use all my powers and...
Yep, that wasn't, I did slightly see through it, yeah.
And so my first thought at full time really was that I deprived myself of quite a special moment because the whole way through at 1-0 I thought, look, if it gets to about 90 whatever, I'll watch the stoppage time play out because they're not going to come back at that point, and I'll see in like real time, I'll see us win the league. That Haaland goal kind of changed everything. And so I put everything down and I just sat there like this. And I was just waiting for my phone to go, I told my mum to start watching the game. She was watching something else. And I was like, get that game on. Channel 501, stick it on. She texted me after like 3 minutes. And I don't know how you do this. This is horrible. So I've indoctrinated someone else into the Arsenal fandom. But I was just riddled with fear. Eventually, I find out, I see across the bottom of the screen there, Arsenal are Premier League champions. Had a little run around my flat. And then, really, I just sat where TK is now, looking at the ceiling with tears rolling down my face. I tried to rally some troops to head straight out. Turns out I have very little responsibility compared to literally every other Arsenal fan that I know. But I did take myself to the pub for a couple of drinks. I felt I just needed to get out of the house. I just needed to be doing something. Right. I just needed to kind of feel some energy, even if none of it was related to the football. And so to anyone else around, I was someone on the Wetherspoons Wi-Fi, scrolling endlessly on my phone with an expression like Matthew McConaughey's character at the end of Interstellar when he sees his daughter again and he doesn't know whether to smile or cry or just whatever he's supposed to do. And so the video that Arsenal released came out at that point. I don't know if either of you saw the video, if it came across your radar. Wenger introducing it. Just my first thing then was a man that believes in jinxes like I do could not have commissioned that to take place, to say to Wenger, record this, you're champions, you've done it. No way. There is no chance I'm
If it had all gone wrong and you found out that video was created, you'd have blamed whoever created that.
I'll be honest, I was wondering how many other things have taken place over the years that we aren't aware of. Even if it's not just Arsenal, even if it's just other teams, like how much of this stuff takes place, because we all know of this stuff with Champions T-shirts to get made and they get fired off to charities. With people
planning the after party, always a story.
Yeah, and the arches. I was in the barbers last week and someone went, you know that Arsenal bought a bus for the parade, and I thought, that's not how that works. They didn't buy a bus. But this is like what goes round in these kind of circles. So,
do you think logically though, like with how fast things have to move, they do have to take risks on these things to get them in place?
They do have to plan it, don't they?
Yeah. I said on Sunday when we recorded last week that the Burnley game wasn't going to be as easy as everyone expected. Didn't expect it to be that hard.
Yeah.
But Havertz got the winning goal as a Champions League winning goal and a Premier League winning goal on his CV now. And I think everyone just kind of got stuck in after that, applied some pressure to City that they weren't able to hold up to. And I've got a lot to say, but I probably won't get it all out in this episode, or we'll be here all night.
We've got time. The whole summer.
If I asked you, kind of simply put, did the best team win the league this season?
I think so. Yeah, I do think they did. Had you sort of, had a meltdown against Burnley or against Palace in the last game, if it had gone to the last game, for example, and City had got it done, it would have felt like they were sort of nicking a title as opposed to being the best team. I think for the longest time on this pod, I've kind of been saying this idea of Man City that you've got in your head, people generally, not just to you, is not the City that we're currently seeing. Still a very good team, but it is not. And so I was looking at the Everton game and the Bournemouth game for the longest time and going, I don't think they're taking maximum points from those. I looked at the Arsenal games and I thought they are taking maximum points from their games. And so, it's kind of said week in, week out, I know what I'm getting from Arsenal each time. And they're the only team you've been able to say that about this season. Every other team has been up and down, carnage, or if you do know what you're getting from, it's not for good reasons. Arsenal, the only team you've really been able to say that about, even about City.
I said some things about Arteta a few weeks ago. I feel a bit embarrassed about them now, but it's how I felt at the time. There was no kind of performance there. But I just couldn't see how we could go again if we hadn't won this season.
He effectively said that in that interview out there with Ian Wright. And that
he's been very open in the kind of week that has passed since.
Yeah.
As have the players.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it was Russian roulette, I think, for him with this season, because it's to not win in that, things are different, and City did snitch it from you. The damage that does to the changing room and that relationship with players.
If you don't win it this year, they're going to go, well, when are we going to win it? Like I said, it's felt like they're the best team for it.
Players start to look elsewhere for guaranteed trophies to avoid that pain again.
Yeah.
And it's like I can only describe it as you are literally inches from the top of the mountain and you fall all the way back down.
Yeah.
And you're right back to square one.
I don't think I've ever related to anyone more. I don't know if you saw this in Arteta's interview, and he was asked why he didn't, or if he did watch the game with the players, and he said, basically, I didn't have the requisite energy for the group, and I needed to take myself away in that instance. I really like that.
I love that as someone for an excuse. And next time you ask him to come out, it's like, I would not have the requisite energy. You don't need that in our group. See you later. Let you go out.
I have seen some others suggest that he isn't being entirely open with the fact that he didn't watch the game, and there might be some footage out of there of him.
Oh, right. The thing was as well, the weird thing about the Arteta situation is, you are right. A few weeks ago, about you said, look, if he doesn't win it, we'll have to get rid of him. He was in an odd spot. It was almost like with Southgate in the last tournament, where it was like he's in this really weird spot where he's either going to win the tournament or he's binned. And it's going to win the tournament and get a knighthood, or you get binned. And as it was, he went out and still got a knighthood. But it was such a weird. Yeah, like one thing or the other, like Alex said, Russian roulette, and
it's the weight of the journey behind him up to that point. Because if it's not, it felt like it felt like an end of a journee if he didn't win, because he's got so many seasons beforehand.
Yeah.
He's got this star-studded squad.
It's such a hilarious sort of like one outcome or the other, though, isn't it? Because now you look at it and go, well, he can go on a run here. One of the things that I was mainly thinking, and I should have said it on the pod because it would have looked better then than now. But one of the main arguments against getting rid of him is, well, if you had to do whichever silly example, gun to your head or £1 million on the line, whatever, if you had to say that week at that point, next season, who you guarantee will be there or thereabouts in the top two. I'm not going to say they can win it, but will be there or thereabouts. The team you have to guarantee, you'd have still said Arsenal, even with Arteta, even if you hadn't got over the line this year. Because there's all the talk of Pep leaving and we don't know what that's going to entail. Will the charge ever hit? Whatever. And every other club, you go, well, I don't know what's going to happen with Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea. I'm not going to put Spurs in that conversation. So you go, well, they are the sure bet to still be there again. And that's probably the thing maybe that was hanging over Arsenal fans, was to want to stick with this guy, and the frustration of if they can't get over the line was we should be. Like, they should be. If you look at, and everything's kind of set for this team now. If you look at the age of the group, the profile, you, unlike my club, seemingly have the contract situations that your big players sorted, which we don't. So
Arteta out of contract next season.
I'm sure you're... And there's no better job for him either. When you look at he's not going to walk into a better job. So
yeah, he spoke about how things.
He's not getting the Barcelona Madrid job. Is the thing at this point. He could get the Madrid.
Well, you never know with Madrid.
Yeah. But unless he changes the style of play, Barca won't jump on it.
A very quick one for that. His style of management is so polar opposite to what Madrid wants.
I completely agree, but. I'll draw a comparison to how many, after Mourinho won his first title at Chelsea, how many years did we get out of him at Chelsea before he left?
He's a different character.
I know he's a different character, but
the other thing about Arteta, he's never going to get the opportunities he's had at Arsenal, where a club of that size, where he's been able to have that much say and that much control from the jump. I don't think he's ever going to be able to replicate that again.
Well, we'll find out who he is, because if he's I think it's either it's a coin toss. He's either going to turn into one of the sort of like an Arsene Wenger, Alex Ferguson figure who stays and embeds himself with the club for a long period of time, or he's a career man and he's looking to spread his legacy onto other clubs. It's going to be one of those. I couldn't call it.
There's not another Premier League club you're going to go to.
No.
I'm talking about abroad. Yeah. So going to one of the big Italian clubs, German clubs.
They just don't have as much appeal now, do they? Is the thing.
They don't. But we are. We do love our Premier League.
Easy for us to say.
He spoke in that interview and other interviews he's done about how difficult it was, and this was the most difficult season with nerves and having to find different ways to do things this time around. I think you kind of alluded to it there. I've done a 180. The second that game finished on Tuesday, I wasn't thinking about how long Arteta's going to be here for. I'm thinking about a dynasty. I'm thinking that right now I'm looking around the league and saying, you could all be food to me.
Yeah.
And it's never that simple. I mean, based on what I've seen this season, I looked at our league campaign, I looked at City's league campaign for our next segment. This should have been so easy this season. And I think if you take the nerves out of it, and I've made the joke about Liverpool, I think you can put a faceless club there. If 3 minutes had gone differently at the end of City's game at Anfield, this could have been a crusade for us at the end of the season. So, I don't know. What I thought was interesting, and we do forget sometimes, I think, that this is a manager in his first job, literally this first managerial job. And I've watched just about every interview, every compilation. I've read everything that I can get through. And the thing that stood out to me the most was from Miguel Delaney, I think. And it was like, here's all the ups and downs of Arsenal's season. And he referenced in there that Arsenal were about as low as they have been after the Bournemouth game this season, where I think collectively all of us were like, we've got City next, what the hell do we do now? And he says that Eze came to see Arteta after that game and basically said to him, look, we can do this, but you need to give us a bit of space. Because Arteta previously in every season, and obviously Eze isn't aware of that, his thing has been, if we lose, we need to work 10 times harder now before we get to the next game. And at this stage of the season, you just can't do that with players, particularly with the amount of games that we're playing. And previously, I'm not sure Arteta would have taken that on board.
No.
And he says that Arteta said to him, I appreciate you coming to say that to me. I agree with what you're saying. We'll take a step back, more days off. we're going to make it work, basically. And from that point forward, we go to the City game. We obviously don't win, but I think Rice said the feeling in that game was a lot different to everything that had come before it. And if that's what won us the league, maybe we would have won the league anyway, I don't know. But
it's interesting. I didn't know that. And
yeah.
Eze kind of...
It's interesting to me that Eze is the one...
That he had the character to do it and, only came in the summer. It's kind of surprising that he felt able to do that, which is... Like I said, and maybe Arteta, even a year ago, probably 2 years ago, probably says, what are you talking about? That control freak element.
I think he'd have seen it as a sign of weakness to bow down.
Especially to a relatively new player. But I think he probably has developed this year anyway, even if you look at how he deals with the press and everything. Much calmer, more measured. He just knows how to deal with it now. And I think every time there's been a potential for pressure to build and there to be a bottleneck, he seems to have relieved it really well in his press conference, where previously you kind of felt like he kind of amped it up a bit more, and he seems to know what this squad needs more now.
It feels like that game just made everything so much clearer after that. We know what we've got to do,
Yeah.
Go and win all of your games, and then we'll see where we are with goals at the end of the season. But win all your games, trust that they're going to drop some points or something's going to happen along the way. And you look from after that, we don't concede another goal until the last game of the season when the league's been won.
Some going in it, yeah.
Whereas City, I thought at the time, but I wasn't confident enough to say it, to be honest, it felt like they'd won the league that day. Yeah. You look at the way they were going around the pitch, you look at Haaland eyeing up the camera, some other footage had come out since of him letting his head on, he's doing a lap of the pitch, smirking at the fans, kind of taking it all in. I don't know. Rodri complained on Tuesday that the league hadn't given them enough time off after the FA Cup final. It's like, come on. We played 8, 9, 10 games more than them this season on account of us being still in the Champions League. I think what killed them, or rather resurrected us, was that we played twice again after they went top against Burnley.
Yeah, agreed.
And we were able to make them the chasing pack again. Yeah. And I just think if we were playing back-to-back each time and we were matching up, maybe things would have been different. But we were constantly able to have them chasing. And I don't know, even the Burnley game, for us as fans, for rival fans, whatever, and I'm not looking at either of you in particular, for people that may have wanted us to lose the league, you had to sit through 95 minutes each time for us to grind out a 1-0.
It's tough.
And I think if you're watching that Fulham game as a City player, half-time, Fulham are shit, get this game off. But the Newcastle one and the West Ham one and the Burnley, you're sat there the whole time thinking something's going to happen, and then it doesn't. You're like, okay, we've got to win our game this weekend and see what happens. I don't know. That got to them in the end. And so for all the talk of us bottling it, don't know if I want to use that word in their direction, but I think the pressure got to them as much as it got to us. I think it was easy to have no pressure until we got to that game. They beat us. And then all of a sudden, I think it was, well, shit, we got to win all our games or we win the league.
I think bottle for them, and I don't mean this as like bigging them up, it's the opposite, to be honest. I don't think bottle's the right term for City, because a bottle to me it's like a sporting choke. You know, they're feeling the pressure of the moment. I think what brought them down, and again, is the arrogance of they are a winning title side. And when it gets really, really tough, and you've got to really grit everything out, that last little percent you need, Arsenal have that. I don't feel like City do. I don't think they've got
I've pushed back
character in them.
I've pushed back in the last couple of years, and I think I said a couple of times on here, this would be the first one we bottled. We went on an 18-game run where we drew one game and lost one game, and we were told we bottled the league to Man City and we lost out on goal difference. It's like, the whole term has lost its real meaning. Like someone said to me the other week, are Arsenal going to bottle it against PSG?
Yeah.
What are we talking about here?
PSG are literally the favourites.
I think there was something with them. I think
a decent amount of that is obviously just trolling as well, isn't it? Most of the
for sure.
Is
but there was
trolling.
something with them. All of a sudden, they had to go and win. All season it was Arsenal are going to win it. Arsenal are obviously going to win it. And then it was at their feet.
Yeah, potentially.
And they couldn't go and do it.
I I know what you mean. I've seen a little bit of sort of movement of that the last few days. And look, Arsenal fans probably trying to put the boot back in that they've been getting, which I do get. I just don't think they were good enough. If you look at the Everton game, I thought it should have gone worse for them than it actually did, especially if decisions had gone for them, which maybe Rodri and co could remember from that. And same with the Bournemouth one. Bournemouth were all over them like a rash. And it was probably more, if you want to look at the sort of mentality part in the Bournemouth one, I actually thought they looked a bit kind of weak generally. They didn't look like, the pressure's got to us, we're panicking. They looked a bit despondent. Once they went behind, even when Haaland got the goal,
I was so taken back by that.
I thought they looked almost jogging back to the halfway line, kind of, it's too late. The team that kind of never think it's too late. And they did have a chance near the end. Did it fall to Shirky or whatever? Not a great chance, but...
That's why I said arrogance over...
Yeah, it's potentially.
Like, that's what it felt to me. Watching them, that's what it felt like.
But I think sometimes we get...
Haaland is he's like the face of the team on the pitch. And he, arrogance king there. But he... So that's, he's the face. If you look at the team in the rest the same way, I'm sure not all of the training rooms like that. But, the slow jog back, like they've got this in the bag, that it's an arrogance mistake.
I always feel like I don't want to make it a purely Arsenal thing, but Doku gets that goal against Everton. He's shushing the crowd and running back. It's 3-3 in a game where you need to win to keep the title in your hands. I remember we're competing for like 4th, 5th place, and we came from behind against Bournemouth, ironically. And Giroud got a goal in stoppage time and he went to celebrate. And we were the laughing stock of the league for Giroud. And he ran to the corner flag and we were playing for nothing. And then I see what's happening here and it's, what a great result for City. It's just kind of, they are what they are. But I don't know, there was something with them this season. And I think a lot of it gets apportioned to, and we were told, weren't we, by Neville and Carragher and whoever else, saying... This team's been here before they've won it, and you look through and you're like,
not that many of them.
4 of them have been there and won it, and those players weren't the ones getting them over the line. It was the others that were dragging them down. Really, I don't know. Immediately the conversation shifted to the style Arsenal won it in, and this and that, and I'll be honest, boring set pieces, ugly, whatever people say about this team and the way they've won the league. I don't give a fuck about how they've done it. We could do the exact same next season. It wouldn't be good for my heart, but I don't care.
The interesting thing with that, it was Arsenal fans would kind of say, Friday, we don't care. And they would kind of bite enough. It was like, I think you care a little bit. And it's a difficult one, because on the one hand, it got made into more of a thing that it should have been anyway. So I can understand why you might have a bite back a little bit. But also, I think I was speaking about on the pod before, but Arsenal had become the style club under Wenger, so it was an identity kind of thing. It probably was a bit of a crisis. For example, I bet if we had Lawrence on the pod now, he would probably go, I was rattled by people talking about our style. I think you probably would admit it. It's because there is something there. The interesting, do you think now that he has got over the line, there'll be, I'm not saying like a wholesale change of course, but do you think he might go up the handbrake just a touch more as well and develop the style a bit more? Because apart from anything, he is a guy that likes to change things or work on things constantly. So will he, or will he double down? Some other managers do.
What I will say, just before I let you go onto it, from the outside to me, and like, because there's been plenty of other teams who are like that have won the Premier League title that lack style. Jose Mourinho's Chelsea, and like I defy, like, it's easier, like any genuine Premier League fan, if you offer them a genuine Premier League title versus a nice looking style, they're going to go for the Premier League title. So it's very hypocritical. But I think the avenue I'd be interested in hearing here is does it feel like a sin based on the talent that you've got in the squad?
Well, I think if you look at Arsenal's attack, and I don't think I would like to be involved in the conversation, but I think if we did a summer podcast on let's rank every club's attack in the league, I wouldn't like where we end up on that list.
Totally agree. Yeah.
And so with part of it, I think for sure everyone would like to see their team playing tiki-taka, bop it, fast attacking football. But then, and I disagree with the sentiment that, look, Arsenal tried that, it didn't work, and so they've gone to this. I think this has largely been circumstantial. I think you've seen flashes when everyone's been available of the football that Arsenal can play. And I think they've gone into the market each summer for the last 3 years saying there's going to be an attacker that can take us to the next level. And they've looked at the market and there hasn't been. They said that Arsenal were given the same opportunity that Liverpool were to go and get Alexander Isak, and they said, we've not seen him play 2 games a week. We don't want to spend that outlay when we could get 2-3 players which could substantiate our squad going into this year. And ultimately, it's the squad that won it for Arsenal, because previously Saka cannot go down for all of those games. And whatever I think about Noni Madueke, he's filled in for those games to the point where we're having a conversation about, is Madueke too tired come this stage of the season? So much has gone on. I think the style, ultimately, I'd rather see my team win games than lose games. So at the end, for the 90 minutes, I've spent it thinking, why can't we just get our foot on the ball, play more passes, this, that. But then for the 7 days or the 4 days afterwards, I'm in a good mood because Arsenal have won. And so that's the difference to weigh up.
It's to kind of touch on the point you made and a little bit what AJ said, though. It's, you've kind of got, one, it's not a choice there. I think you can play more football than ever, because some of these games have been like, fuck me, what are they doing? They can play way more football than this. And kind of touch on you said, as much as I don't think it's like the best attacking talent you'll ever see, sometimes they are better than is being shown in these games.
Yeah.
And a different team would probably get, with a more expansive style, would get more out of some of those attacking players. So that's kind of all.
Injury issues, though, as well, taking out key players. Like
sure.
Saka, you lost Saka, what, to 2-3 times this season?
We've had as many injuries as we had last season, where we were deemed to have an injury crisis. What I think this season is... Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
The main thing with the injury thing is, I always think of injuries generally, and Arsenal were probably one of the biggest case in points last year. It's less about necessarily number of injuries, but more clusters. If you get, basically the front three was annihilated, that's a fair reason to not challenge for the league last year. Whereas here it was Saka out for a period of time, then you could ultimately form a front three. Now, admittedly, there were times where, was it Martinelli, Gyökeres and Madueke, you don't need to see that too many times as a free. But there's enough there that we can get through these games because they're so good defensively. But we said basically from the start of the season how good the squad was as well.
We went into a Champions League knockout game last season with a Tierney, Marino, Sterling front line.
Exactly. So that upgrade is and that's why last year
won the game.
Last year was an absolutely fair sort of, you can go, look, this injury happened to our attackers. This year, that would have been, if that had been tried to use in this season, that would have fell on deaf ears for me. But
I've had thoughts the whole way through the season. Sometimes felt too conscious to say it or whatever. I think I said about 6 to 8 weeks ago, I think Arteta will try to play a different style of football next season. I think when I look at what we plan to do in the summer, and I have no knowledge currently of who we're in link with. Well, I have the ideas. I don't like who we're linked with, so I'm hoping it's not right. I think we're going to get some more techie players, some more get your foot on the ball players. Because I look at that second half against Burnley, I look at the 90 against Brighton, the second half against Newcastle, and there was no one there that would put their foot on the ball, slow it down, and Arteta used to say, I want to kill teams, death by 1,000 passes. He said this. And so I think that will be the direction we go in. Now, what I think is good about Arteta that we haven't had with our 2 previous managers is that if that death by 1,000 passes doesn't work, he's more than happy to say, we've done this before, everyone behind the ball, let's nod this clear, let's boot it clear, and we'll win it by any means necessary. And so we'll see, I guess, if he tries to do that next season, how quickly he reverts back if he doesn't feel it's working quick enough.
Yeah, it's an interesting one just from the fan base point of view as well. Now that you have one, I do think there will be a little bit more, particularly from the match going fan, to kind of go, need to see a bit more than this, because there has been games where people are openly saying, I'm going to these games and I'm miserable throughout, but mainly the stress of, are we going to win the league with them? But now that it has been, you're over that hurdle, I think there will be an expectation that you see a little bit more from the team.
I'll be honest, I'm so intrigued as to my own footballing experience next season, because this year, the Champions League I've enjoyed the whole way through. Even the bad games, I've enjoyed watching it and the nature of it. But for the league, I've missed 30% of the minutes because my head's been in my hands and I've just been trying to get through the games.
Or in the 365 app.
Yeah, it's been let's get through it onto the next one, get through it onto the next one. So now that we've won it, I think I said to Jack, I don't know how you hate some of your players given what they've achieved for you. I was looking at Martinelli celebrating yesterday and I'm cheesing. And I'm thinking, I can't believe I've had a bad word to say about you. So equally with what you said, I'm wondering where I go next season. I do think off the back of a World Cup, it might not be a good time to see it because I think we might have everyone playing a more attritional style of football based on the fitness of the players. I think the way that they look around, Slot in the week, and he's done this a few times this season, and Liverpool fans aren't his biggest fan anyway, but he's done the let me do the most backhanded compliment ever, and him saying, look, we won the league last year, they won it this year, but it's a different league this year. We're more about set pieces. They've scored 40% of their goals by set pieces. Liverpool have scored 38% of their goals this year by set pieces. So what I find with Slot, and we'll get on to Liverpool, is that he has his principles. He's happy to shift away from them when it needs to, but he does kind of pretend that he hasn't shifted away from them. And he didn't mind celebrating the league title last season. There was no thought in my head when the game finished on Tuesday night, oh my God, we won the Premier League, but I'd have preferred it if we scored a few less corners.
That's why the whole thing's a bit redundant.
Those celebrations outside the ground, I think the whole thing was just a release. It was what everyone had been waiting for. I can't imagine what those players were feeling. And they've spoken about it a bit in the last few days, that the noise, everyone says during the season, we don't hear the noise. They all hear the noise.
Yeah.
That's become more and more and more clear, but they got over the line. That's what they did. And much like you had last season, you can have the smugness of looking at everyone's pre-season predictions, because no one thought that we would win the league this season. You can go through the BBC pundits, the Sky Sports pundits. One person had Arsenal winning the league across both of those publications, and it was Ellen White, who actually picked the entire top four correctly in order.
She had us out of it. That's fucking good. Good shout.
But
I know somebody on SpitballingPod who did.
I didn't believe. I think I picked a second again coming into the season. I didn't agree with our transfer business, and I liked yours. So, Newcastle away. That Gabriel goal is when I started to dream a little bit, and I thought, okay, there's a bit of something here.
Yeah.
Same with that December period that culminated with that 4-1 win over Villa, where everything still felt on a knife edge. That Jesus goal against Villa is maybe my favourite of the season.
Wow.
I love Mr. Box Office that much, and it was so good seeing him come in, the celebration, kind of where we were. That Newcastle game, I believe, if we didn't win that weekend based on the 2 draws we had, there was the feeling we were going to be 7 points off the pace, and then you lost to Crystal Palace.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we won, and suddenly we're back in the mix again.
Yeah.
There was that run where no one had a shot on target against us for 4 games. West Ham, Fulham, Palace, Burnley. The Eze hat-trick is an obvious highlight, as much as Alex probably didn't enjoy that game. The Dowman goal was
over the season, really.
Yeah. The Dowman goal was like the Nelson one in 22-23. It was like, we have to win the league now. This is the kind of thing that we should look back on. And if you want to talk about style, that's the only thing I would say for me, is that you're not selling the DVD of this Arsenal season. There's not, when I look back, I look at the Gabriel goal, I look at the Dowman goal, and I look at maybe the Eze hat-trick. I watched back. Sure. I went out on Tuesday night, I came back, had about 7 Modelos in here, just watching every single highlight of all the games this season. I wasn't out of my chair. But I was remembering the psyche of what was going on around that time. So before April, the rough patches, drawing with Liverpool and drawing with Forest before losing to Villa. And we always had that buffer to provide consolation. Then we got to the City game and it was like, where the hell has that gone?
Yeah.
Now it's got a serious business. And as I say, I looked at it on paper and it looked straightforward. It didn't feel straightforward the whole time. And so something we can maybe do in the preview pod is what changes from this point onwards. But something I do wonder, even with the playing style, is can you ask these players to do the same again? Because those players that were humble last season aren't humble anymore.
Yeah.
If you listen to Saka, and he's not just going to smile in your face anymore. And
They're talking the talk.
Yeah, they called us bottlers clip. Cringe maybe to other people. I was loving that, everything about it.
Yeah.
Eze, I'm looking at him getting at that City fan. The clip of him, I don't know if you've seen it, of him just hysterically laughing with the City fan AI generated as a bostle now, and he's laughing saying, "Where's his legs? Where's his legs?"
But that's also like that's the deal to me, is we're going to give you all this shit constantly, and if you prove wrong, then you got to have the gun turned on you.
I'm so serious. You could postpone the World Cup now. I'll just revel in us winning. I've not stopped smiling since Tuesday. Every single, I've had a cold, whatever. It's just been bliss for me. And we've got a long summer ahead. And the main thing I think I can say in closing is when I look back at how we got here and what's changed and what could have gone differently is Declan Rice, at the end of the 22-23 season, we've played liquid football, we've come apart at the end of it. He has the choice. He can go to Man United. Sounds like he kind of dashed that to the side. He's got the choice to join a treble-winning Man City to partner Rodri in midfield, or he's got the choice to join Arteta's Arsenal that have just come close and see if he can get us over the line. He chooses that. He tells us it was never a question. I don't know how true that is. But he says, like a lot of players have, once you get in that room with Arteta,
I don't know what he's offering
you
me.
Don't come out and join anyone else. And I just felt from the Community Shield that season, he made a huge difference. We beat them in that. And Trent was mocked last year, not by me, I want to say, that he said this means more when he won with Liverpool. And I think you can hear a lot of Arsenal fans that were laughing at him for saying that and would say the same now about winning with Man City, because we've seen the parades with them.
Yeah.
Several 100,000 people went to the Emirates on a whim on Tuesday night and gathered outside the stadium and let fireworks off and danced and sang until 4-5 a.m. when the players are coming out the ground. And it feels like Declan Rice said, I had the choice, but it felt like winning one with Arsenal would just mean more. And he's done that. He's arguable player of the season. And here we are now. We won the league and we can move on to the next team.
I think they call it a proper club, I think is what the people online would call it.
Yeah,
as opposed to City.
All of the pictures from yesterday, I've been just kind of, I was just Cheshire Cat watching the celebrations yesterday. I'm so happy. Like when I was looking at moments across the season, I obviously had my head in my hands because I think something that would have really broken the tension for me on Monday night, Hincapie's bum coming out. It made me laugh so much. Every clip since I've laughed at. They're doing like a very serious interview with Saka and Declan Rice and Laura Woods. She's showing something. She just gets Hincapie's bum out in the middle of the press conference, in the middle of the interview to show him. And Saka says, we've been laughing at so much. Hincapie gets his moment to lift the trophy yesterday. Ben White's trying to bag him.
Yeah, I saw he did a post after the match and all the players were in the comments going, well, you're missing a picture. You're missing a picture.
Just so happy. And we've got a Champions League final next week. I think I said like January this year, and I didn't know who was going to be there. For your first one, I always think you almost wish you're not there in the Champions League, so you can have the drinks on Sunday night after you've won the league and all of this.
Yeah.
And instead, they had their days off. Buckle back up now. We got a big one to go into. But for all of the feeling around Arsenal this season, and so much of it has felt negative the whole way through. We're on the precipice of doing something that this club has never done before. So
yeah, absolutely.
And just to put my feeling on the table, it's kind of a free hit for me this weekend, unless they get robbed or smashed. Either could happen.
Yeah.
I'm kind of, if they lose 1-0, if they lose 2-1, if they lose 2-0, it is what it is. I'm happy with the season regardless, and we'll go again next time.
It's kind of the benefit of winning the league the week before the final.
I couldn't imagine going into that final having not won the league. I can't imagine the players having been 90 seconds away from winning the league having to go again on Sunday. I just can't believe how you would mentally get up for that.
That would have been interesting. Not for you, maybe. But Saliba
shouting 4-4-2 guys at the TV and trying to get Bournemouth into shape is everything about it is so good.
Him also blatantly not knowing the words to the Super Mick Arteta song as well. As he was walking up to Kennett, he's like, "You're not even mouthing this well."
I was watching it with a Spurs fan yesterday, and Saliba was like, "He's mental, isn't he?"
So, do you think that's mental? See another video.
So I was able to chill out yesterday because of the Bournemouth result. I asked you and Jack after the Man City game where you thought things would go from now. You both said Man City. Don't hold that against you. I thought the same. Didn't want to say it out loud. Or from Declan Rice in that moment. It's not done. Let me just ask you, where did it go wrong for them? Because you think of where they were, 5 games to go, they're level with us. They end up 7 points behind.
Yeah, I do think a big one that kind of, there's a weird thing with them, and I get they've got benefit of the doubt because of the stuff they've won before, because of the manager they've got and the stuff that he's won. But it's almost like bad performances or drop points don't count. So the big one to me was the Forest one. When they just couldn't get over the line against them. I know they battered them, but at that stage, I was just like, this doesn't quite add up to me. And even we've gone back and forth a little bit at times where you've kind of gone, well, why do when they get it, it's like they're champions. Like when it's us, they scrape by with a win. And most of the time, I would say, well, they've got the benefit of that because they've won. You haven't won yet. The one where I thought it's actually been really unfair, but I couldn't really say it because most of the negativity is from the Arsenal fans themselves. The same week you beat Newcastle 1-0. Was it 1-0? 2?
Yeah, 1-0.
And you stank for most of the game, right? And I remember you coming on the pod and said I actually felt worse after winning that than I did after in some losses. Within the same week, they beat Burnley 1-0. And I know they absolutely, again, they battered them. But I was like, they should be doing more than 1-0 against Burnley, particularly at that point when they're talking about goal difference. And so there was, I don't know, there were warning signs pretty much, well, throughout the season, really. But I think I did say, in fairness, on the pod with after the City Arsenal game that I didn't think they were just going to go and win all the games. That I felt there'd be more ups and downs because this team just doesn't feel like that team. And I felt like that they didn't control games like they normally do, and when they can't do that, when a pep team can't control you, it becomes
all season we've been saying, why do people just assume they're going to rattle?
No, there's nothing to say they're going to go on that long run. Far more likely to go on a run like the season before, when they'd had an unprecedented amount of losses.
I remember, so that after the City Arsenal game, obviously I may have been on a bit of a high after that, seeing that. But I remember listening to the podcast. Didn't have much to enjoy this season. I remember I tuned in quite happily to the podcast on that Monday. But the standout comment from that was TK's about they're not gonna go and win, and then like all of these games, like they're not gonna grit it out.
Yeah.
And then I was sat at work, and I was
also means you didn't think we were going to win.
Yeah.
Well, that was it. Yeah. I didn't think.
I was sat at work listening. I was thinking, I agree with that. And you left it in that, and then I went back to Arsenal going to win.
And then you start looking at the fixture list and you go, well, I would take that one over this one.
Yeah.
But at that stage, there was. That's where Arsenal probably really do deserve credit, is that they kept their heads on. As long as you keep your heads on, play like we have been, we'll be fine. It's just that they thought what they got.
There was a lot of talk as well about City had the easier running than Arsenal as well.
Oof.
I didn't.
No way.
There was plenty of that chat around.
Yeah.
Not from this podcast, but there was a lot. There was. I seem to remember tuning in. And City got an easier run. I was like, I looked at him, I was like, really?
I think even like there was some suggestion that it's kind of coin toss stuff. And again, I've referenced these games way too much. But away at Everton, away at Bournemouth, they're just hard games. And like people like Gary Neville or whatever on the TV go, well, City should win that. But of course they should win it. They should win every game. But that's not how it goes.
Rice in his interview with Sky was like, and Gary Neville saying it sounded like I was crying when I was doing that. And he's like, I wasn't.
Declan, by the way, I mean, I saw an interview of him where he's gone, there's about 100 cameras on me. How was I to know about the it's not over thing? And I was like, well, do you know what? Maybe I have been overly cynical. I shouldn't have judged him too much. And then I've seen a clip of him at Selhurst Park in the little gantry bit reacting to the news that West Ham have gone down, going, oh, damn. I was like, no, you are so aware. You're way too aware of cameras. I'm not giving you the benefit of the doubt ever again.
I don't know if you feel differently. I felt like City were unusually chatty pretty much from the Carabao Cup onwards. Semenyo, Cherky, Bernardo, Rodri all had something to say.
O'Reilly did, didn't
Yeah,
he?
every single day. And it was always gassing themselves up, like they were trying to talk themselves into something.
They were protesting too much.
Yeah, the reactions at full time kind of told me they weren't faking the belief. But I have to say, the quotes weren't scaring me every time. Like, previously I'd heard, whether it was Haaland or whatever, saying, we can do this, we know we can do it. And it felt a lot different to this season when they were saying,
Hyping themselves.
they were kind of talking us down, and it just didn't feel right to me. Semenyo doing we gave them the runaround, and Doku saying that we knew that if we won the Carabao Cup, we were going to put an extraordinary amount of pressure on them. And I thought, you score 3 goals a season. Let's not have a lot of chat from you, by the way. Because when he scored his run of goals, but when the going got tough again, where was he? That Savinho run at the end of that game. Oh, my goodness.
It struck me more as just off the pitch gamesmanship of just talking the talk and try and generate like a Newcastle meltdown moment when they're up against United.
We didn't have the facilities for that. And Rice said that he didn't watch any of the Bournemouth City game. He said he planned to watch it, got the head of security and said, I can't watch it. We're just going to walk around the pitches at the facility. And he said they heard them score, came in, and then said, we can't watch the second half. And he said he stood in front of everyone and said, right, whatever seats you were in for the first half, you got to stay in that same seat and you got to do all of this. And then came back in 5 minutes before the end, which is where you see him on camera.
A man who respects the jinx.
Exactly. You asked last week, TK, why is everyone so sure Maresca is going to take over? They've mugged you there pretty quickly.
Well, wasn't me saying he isn't going to take over.
Okay.
I didn't know why he was so naturally the successor. I still don't get it.
All right, they didn't mug you. They thought about it.
Yeah.
Do you think Pep wanted the news to break when it did? Or do you think they were trying to use it against Bournemouth? Or it's just there's so many people involved in these decisions now that someone heard it and shared it?
It was just weird about the whole thing, wasn't it? I don't know if there's a good way of dealing with your departure, because we've kind of seen it both ways now. He hasn't said anything, let it go. Klopp did his out of nowhere. And in neither case did it necessarily do...
Yeah.
If they were trying to do it for a reason, in neither case did it achieve an outcome. So I don't really know. He seemed a bit put out. I thought he might do a Tom Brady and go, I'm giving you another season. I'm not happy that this got leaked. I'm going to fucking do it. Mm-hmm. I think he probably wasn't too happy. But also, if you constantly face questions about, are you going to stay or are you going to go? And your answer isn't that you will stay, then you're going to go. Same with Trent. How many questions before you go, well, if he's not saying he's staying, he's going?
The issue for myself as an Arsenal fan is we've heard players tell us they're staying, and it doesn't even mean that when they do say it.
No, but if they don't say they're staying, they're definitely going.
I'm not having that this was a transition season. They didn't win last year either, so I don't know suddenly how many transition seasons can you have? And they brought in
I'm asking myself the same question.
They brought in the 2 best available players on the market in January. They just weren't good enough then for the remaining portion of the season.
The price that comes with being Man City is that you can't have transitional seasons. Is that you are always thereabouts. You've got a bottomless pit of money, and then, even if they're not the highest spend that season, you have a base there that you're basically always supposed to be. The owners will say, well, the investment we put into this, that is supposed to mitigate against transition, and the transitional seasons for them should be, I guess, this one where it's just fallen short 2 trophies.
Yeah,
if that's your transitional year, that's what it's supposed to be. Last year you couldn't call it a transitional year; it was just a shit one for them. I mean, they still got the FA Cup final, but
if I can look back at the kind of feeling towards them this season, we were on a trip in November. You were playing City on the way back. I didn't know who I wanted to win. I actually wanted you to win, City to win, because I thought you were a bigger threat than them this season. They won 4-0 on the opening day. We were terrified of Reinders coming on here on the podcast on the Monday. We were looking at their attacking talent. They obliterated United, but they'd lost 2 of their first 3 games. And I remember when they played us at the Emirates and just being really struck by the way that they sunk in, because you could say, if you wanted to, and if you wanted to big him up, that Martinelli goal wins us the league. That takes 2 points away from them. That Donnarumma mistake that no one wants to talk about, but they played the deepest defensive line of any team all season in that game. I remember coming away thinking, it's really annoying we didn't win. I remember going into the game thinking we need to win that if we want to win the league this season. But just the feeling that they felt they were so inferior to us that they had to play like that. And I had so many kind of conflicting thoughts coming out of that. And then you had the Enzo dagger at the Etihad. United battered them at Old Trafford.
Run away in Spurs.
Yeah, 2 games later, Spurs did us another favour. Solanke scored one of the goals of the season.
They have their number every year.
Yeah.
Rodri says there was a conspiracy against them. But that win at Anfield...
Doesn't get a ban.
Yeah. That win at Anfield just awoke them. It scared the shit out of me at the time. I thought they were done. The celebration of the aftermath, they just caught life. But the Forest and West Ham draws are where I properly believed we could do it. I remember the Arsenal fans at Brighton after we'd ground out a disgusting 1-0 against them, and they were doing, now you're going to believe us, we're going to win the league. And I thought, oh, don't do that, that's too soon. I feel like I'm just kind of reading out results. Everton, I mean, Gahey does his Gerrard moment. I was singing Spirit of the Blues at 11 p.m. It's like... You kind of referenced it. We said that the Klopp stuff was a distraction at the end for Liverpool. You won a few games, they've spurred them on, you lost a few. What was Klopp doing? He's kind of distracted them. I just don't know with Pep. I just kind of think this squad honestly isn't good enough. And that's where I feel have any kind of feeling towards next season is with, if anyone was going to get a tune out of them, it was going to be Guardiola. Donnarumma makes too many mistakes. I just looked down that team. Rodri showed glimpses but couldn't sustain it for a season. They'd routinely get overrun in the second half of games. Pep was fighting himself as to how he should use Cherki, which I'd want less of him too. But I don't know how they should feel coming out of this year. Do they feel like we ran them really close? Do they feel like we should have won the league, we missed out on it? I don't know where they should be kind of sat. Do they say, we won 2 cups, good season?
They seem to be kind of... They have convinced themselves it's a transitional season, which presumably they say they'll be better again next year. If you can have 2 trophies in a transitional year, that's good going, and a title challenge to get almost onto the last game. So it's not bad going. I just... If you say the same squad with some additions, are you now a better team with Enzo Maresca as your manager than with Pep Guardiola? It doesn't strike the same fear into people. Now, if they go out and sign Elliot Anderson, some others, I might be thinking a little bit differently. I do think that midfield is probably the key bit if they can sort that.
I wonder if some of the allure of playing for City wasn't that you're going to win the league titles, wasn't this or that. It was that you were going to play under Pep Guardiola.
Yeah.
I wonder if you've done all the groundwork with Anderson, and I'm not saying that Carrick is suddenly more appealing, but I have to think that United might be more appealing than City, certainly when you're not guaranteed the league title at the end of the season with them.
If you think, and genuinely think United are going somewhere, then it's the Declan Rice thing, choosing Arsenal over City. It's that I'm going for this club with history and I'm going to put it back on its perch, whereas City is what it is. That's it's the safer bet all times at this point, City. But and that's the pressure on Maresca is, it's obviously huge to follow Pep anyway, but that's one of them, is that you've got to keep this club at a certain level, because if it falls off under him, even if they just become part of the we're fighting for Europe sort of teams, that can quickly become that's what this club is now. Chelsea fans will probably tell you that. They'll go, well, that can happen very quickly.
Before we go to the other end of the table, which is why Alex is here, Watkins... banger of a goal yesterday. Those quick feet, sneaking in and out, doing that on a hangover.
Them all posting about how they'd done no prep and were hungover, by the way. Fucking nuts.
Watkins, I think, posted how the hell did that happen there?
Yeah. They're all just going like, who's
We
it?
could have been relying on them for a league title.
Tyrone Mings was going, I don't want to ever hear anything about recovery and whoop and all that again. They're all just like pissing themselves laughing.
In the same week that Stephen Bartlett can't function after 3 glasses of wine. For 3 days, by the way. For 3 days afterwards. We're taking these down now. The last thing on this game, we had this with John Terry previously. Did you like the in-game guard of honour for several Man City players?
I thought that was odd. I thought it was odd. And I guess I can say it on the basis that we had, I would say, a more legendary player also signing off in this game and didn't have that moment. You could have enough moments for them without needing to do that. It was
Why are Villa agreeing to it? Is it just someone asks you where you feel too bad to say no?
Yes, 100%. You what can you do?
So the John Terry thing, it emerged down the line, which, very true to form, that John Terry himself had asked for this to take place in the game, that he should be subbed off in minute 20, was it?
Was it 26? Because there's numbers.
Sorry. He was subbed off in minute 26 and we do the guard of honour then.
That is the idea of asking.
Did one of Bernardo or John Stones ask for this to happen?
John Stones does not
Out of
have
those
that
two,
in.
yeah.
John Stones does not have that in. Bernardo.
I don't see Bernardo doing that either.
I think I think he could.
Yeah.
I think he could, but I think the club.
I'm annoyed now I know
changed
the
it.
result that I watched Spurs instead of seeing him leave the pitch for the last time. I'd have been at home rallying up. Get out of here! Get out of town! And instead, I was watching Spurs meander to a 1-0 win.
Yeah, but it was a weird day for that, wasn't it? Really, because there was so much going on. Probably less so. Bernardo Silva is a Premier League legend, but he's a player.
Premier League bastard.
Yeah. Pep leaving is a huge moment, and felt like it.
Him crying as well.
It felt like it didn't get far away, of course it didn't, but it probably should be a story in and of itself, and it kind of wasn't, because Arsenal were lifting the trophy.
Yeah.
Spurs and West Ham were a story. Salah leaving Liverpool or whatever grabbed my attention, maybe not so many other people. So, yeah, it felt kind of...
It grabbed my attention because they showed it on the Arsenal channel when I was trying to wait for the trophy lift, and they were talking about everything but...
Well, yeah, because I was... But
Arsenal.
then they had these multiple channels that all just ended up being on one thing each time. So we were having like a Jared Bowen interview and stuff like that. Like,
last thing, and I promise we'll move on to the other end of the table. I thought I was being mental until I spoke to some other Arsenal fans, and that was really, really annoying me, because I don't need you to be giving me any coverage for Arsenal. Just show me it. Just don't even talk. I'm here. I'm seeing them lift the trophy with Dave Jones going, and let's talk about the dark times. Let's not talk about the dark times. Let's see him lift the trophy. I remembered an article you wrote on SpitballingPod.com, which is no longer with us. I'm still paying the domain just in case.
We'll resurrect that.
But you spoke about the end of the Super Bowl, where all of a sudden, all these photographers and reporters swarm in and we don't get to see the raw emotion of these players. I had the same here. I was trying to watch the players lift it, and there was enough emotions for all the players that you had a bit of something every time. And I'm hearing Mika Richards, Ian Wright, Jamie Redknapp, who's never enriched a conversation in his life, yap over the top of it. Just let me take it in. He wasn't even the worst. Ian Wright was probably doing my head in the most, I'll be honest.
I hate that he was wearing sunglasses inside. He is not that guy.
He might be that guy, whether you like that is a thing. But anyway, Alex, I'll be honest with you, completely transparent now. I asked you and I asked Connor earlier this week if you'd like to be on this podcast. You said yes. Connor said, if West Ham stay up, you're here. He's not. Spurs stayed up, West Ham didn't. I'm going to ask you how you're feeling. I'm going to be listening, but I'm just going to nip off camera just to get another drink. So look to TK and tell him how you're feeling after yesterday's results.
Okay, I'm probably not the best Spurs fan to be talking to in terms of raw emotion, because
you're the one we've got.
I know. But in terms of what I will say is how some of the Spurs fans that have gone to that stadium with that level of enthusiasm, week in, week out, with the worst home record, it's just 3 wins at home. most of our points away from home. I couldn't have been one of those Spurs fans. I think I would have been a police hazard. I would have been a hazard to those players and anybody involved with that club. My emotion staying up is still anger.
Bit of embarrassment.
In the end, I texted Luke and I said, I got to a point this season where I was out for blood, to the point of that I want the club to stay up, I want the fans to stay up, I want the players and I want the leadership to go down. I want them to feel pain. I want them to be punished in some way. I know there was talk of wage cuts and all that kind of stuff. I'd be all for that, regardless of whether they stayed up or not. But my emotion is still rage. It's still rage. I didn't celebrate the one. I reacted to it. I didn't celebrate. It was more of a case of right, okay. It was more just pain and frustration still. For me.
Did you, when the players and the manager was celebrating, pretty?
I turned it off after 90 minutes. Yeah. I didn't watch this. I didn't watch the aftermath of the match. I recall Gary Neville making a lot of comments and saying they better go straight over to those fans and applaud them and do nothing but, which I'm pretty sure they no, they didn't. But during the game they panned to Romero a few times.
Yes, they did.
They panned to him when we scored. If I was celebrating when we scored, I wouldn't have been celebrating when the camera panned to him.
I thought a bigger issue with that wasn't that he went, but that someone clearly told him he could go.
And also then, when there was a media backlash, it's obviously gone, well, you can't go now. As opposed to just going, no,
if he'd gone without asking.
Yeah, the club would have said.
To be honest, I think it would have been better if he didn't come in the end.
You might enjoy
damage had been done.
If you listen to Gary Neville did his podcast afterwards, and he said you can look around this ground and you can see that Tottenham are preaching all this leadership bollocks that they're clearly not backing up, and he's reading out different banners around the ground that say Enoch out, Enoch this, Enoch that. And he said, "This is Tottenham Hotspur we're talking about here."
Yeah, I think when it's gone as badly as it has for us season, to be inches from down in the Championship, it's not just leadership. It's not just the manager merry-go-round that we've been on. It's everybody involved in that team.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to look at themselves individually and go, what was my part in that? There's probably one player that I feel some kind of happiness towards.
Who do you think he's referring to there?
Archie Gray?
No. Paulinho.
Okay, the guy who's on loan seems to care more than the people who are actually.
Which says it. Well, I mean, statistically, he was our defence. Not a single player managed to dribble past him all season.
Ooh,
that is a stat. Check it.
That might be a stat.
Yeah.
But he.
I'm saying he was a defensive midfield. We put 7 past you this season. He played both games.
So he went missing at some point.
I am scraping the barrel for positives. He also contributed the second highest amount of goals all season.
He's been clutch.
Fucking hell.
So little did we know.
Terms of
we were out with the Spurs fan who celebrated the goal against Wolves earlier this season for a draw. Little did we know how big of a goal that would be.
Right to.
So you obviously watched it, and maybe you'll tell me differently. It never felt like there was much jeopardy in this game. TK, I'm assuming you watched this with a West Ham fan.
Yeah.
Was there ever any hope?
No. The West Ham fan in reference was unremittingly negative throughout, I have to say. But when I did flip between the games, and I've got to say, to Spurs' very late credit, in this game there was a bit of purpose to their play, and it's partly Everton stank as well. And if you listen to any Everton fan, they said we've stank for a few months now.
Yeah.
But there's a fluidity to the way Spurs are playing that just wasn't happening in the West Ham game. It was very stodgy. It was very much this is a boiling hot day. We can't go through the gears at all. Now West Ham did obviously later in the game in the second half. By that point, to answer your point about the lack of jeopardy, Spurs were already 1-0 up, and obviously they could afford to draw as well. So that was the big part.
Gary Neville said, if you look up and down this league, there is no better team that Tottenham could have faced today than Everton. Now, 10 minutes later, he did ask for the Sunderland score.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Everton, there was not much.
I might
was there?
speculate, home to Wolves or something is probably a touch still.
Yeah.
Hang on, that was 1-0 for them. It wasn't an easy one for us either. Home to Wolves,
Or us. But you take the point.
away to Wolves, nasty too.
The Everton game is the only game that I've actually lasted 90 minutes for in months, like in terms of watching it all the way through. The Chelsea game was quite hilarious because I watched it. It was like in terms of like
enjoyed that.
how the experience as a fan has been is I turned it on because it was Chelsea Tottenham. I was like still so angry at that point. I don't want to watch like that team play because I just hate looking at all of their faces. I was that angry. But it's Chelsea. My two brothers are Chelsea fans, so I'll watch it. And we needed a point. And I was watching it. I was watching it in bed on my phone because I've only got Sky Go on my phone. And it was that there was moments in that opening 20 minutes where we were playing well enough at Stamford Bridge. I think we had 68% of possession. We were all over them, and it was like all in. Like I'm all in. Players were going all in. Emotions aside towards the players. It was everything all out there. It was at Stamford Bridge. If I would go as far as saying as I'm enjoying watching this. And then they go and score a goal, and I threw my phone across the room.
That was at half time in the Arsenal game. I flicked on and saw Enzo score.
Yeah, I threw my phone across the room.
Can I ask you
and then my phone was confiscated. So I didn't. I then had.
I don't want to spoil the result for you.
I know what the result was. I knew what the result was going to be because in that point, at
you didn't
that
watch
point,
the second half.
No, I didn't watch it. I turned it off.
You're joking. Your phone was confiscated.
No.
You need to have a word.
Yourself first.
It was the rage that I had.
I don't want to say too much.
It was probably better. It was probably better that it was taken off me because the rage that I had in that moment of I'd come out of my place of anger. And I was starting to enjoy us play.
Must be a nice 20 minutes.
And then that goal goes in, and I know what that goal means. When you're playing like
it is
that,
game over.
It's basically like you're in the opening round of a boxing match. You're racking points in that opening round, and then one lucky punch to the chin goes in, and then I'm reminded of what these players are, and I'm like, I know how this is going from here. I don't need to see the end result. I was surprised it was 2-1.
Yeah. Can I ask you something that you may take offence to, but that's not my intention? So I met you in 2012, 14 years ago. The lore around you at that stage was that you previously were a Manchester United fan. Mm-hmm. Why the hell would you change if that was the case?
I don't
know why you've chosen this moment to.
No. It's a fair,
I feel like you must
question.
have told me before, but I've just been thinking about it then.
I'll happily talk about this because there's also one of my brother, keen listener of the pod.
The reason I got there was because how are they both Chelsea then if he's Spurs? So the whole lore I'm unaware of.
I really got into my football because I was more cricket for a lot of my school years. I really got into my football in around sixth form. I think it was just the friends group changed and I got more into it. What I was a fan of, who I was a fan of as a toddler and through my earlier years was I was a big fan of David Beckham, and I had a David Beckham shirt, which was a United shirt. My brother, a Chelsea fan, has not been a Chelsea fan his entire life.
I call out on the
same vein. He loved Michael Owen. He was definitely photographed in a Liverpool shirt.
Come back. We'll take you back.
So yeah. I'd say the more
mud being slung on SpitballingPod.
But that's how. So there is.
Were you having at that point?
Liverpool shit.
Michael Owen.
Robbie Fowler.
Ironically, it was my brother turned 30 the other weekend, and his birthday cake that he had like a photo print on it, and it was a photo of him in
Michael Owen
shirt. No, it was an England Michael Owen shirt, but I'm in the United Beckham shirt.
There we go. That's damning. That's damning.
Nobody brought it up because it was like it was his mates there. But I looked at it and I was thinking, Christ, thank God nobody else is here. But it is it is what it is. But I was a massive David Beckham fan. I think I briefly as well was like after David Beckham left, I was quite Cristiano Ronaldo orientated as well. I thought it was
explains
really cool.
a lot. Explains a lot.
This doesn't explain how you got to Spurs.
I think when I started to really get into football in those later years of secondary school, sixth form.
Suppose we're getting good. Suppose we're getting good.
We qualified for the Champions League. Let's define good. I found myself. My granddad has always been a Spurs fan, so it is in the family that he's always been a Spurs fan. So I was watching a few of the games with him, and
can't question that one.
So there is a
him
Spurs
getting
fan.
hyped up for Villas Boas.
There is, just for clarity, there's no Chelsea fans in the family, so I don't know where my brother's fandom comes from.
We can work that one out.
Exactly. Also, coincidentally, started supporting Chelsea when they got a budget increase. But my dad is an Ipswich fan. Don't know how.
Okay.
And I think my uncle is a Liverpool fan. He's not from Liverpool. There's no family heritage there, so.
That doesn't.
Yeah,
that doesn't.
That's all right.
He's digging all of us out.
Drive-bys.
But yeah, so there's no deep heritage there.
So him more closely following football in sixth form really does check out. He was in my tutor group in sixth form, and I've got a bit of a lingering sort of unexplained resentment towards Spurs. Sean was, when we were younger, like much younger, was slightly less humble than he is now. We'd talk about Spurs being a big club and stuff, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Maybe there's that. But the main thing is, I would go into tutor every day. He'd be looking on his phone at players they were genuinely being linked with at the time. They were linked with Damiel, whatever, that constantly, weren't they? Like, real good players. And at this point, we were signing Paul Konchescu and the Roy Hodgson era. And I was genuinely, my head was on Mars, I won't lie. So there is... If he's, I'm
just thinking, if he was fresh to it, why was he being such a bastard to me in sixth form about Tottenham when it also wasn't close?
You pick your sides and then you back the side.
Okay.
You just go all in at that point.
Okay, well, let me get us back on track. Now we've got Alex's origin story. CK, can this be as simple, this kind of relegation race, as when the going got tough, West Ham had to face teams with something to play for, whereas Tottenham had to face teams with either nothing to play for or something else to play for? The 2 weeks that ultimately killed West Ham were a 3-0 loss to a Brentford side needing Europe and a 1-0 loss to an Arsenal side chasing the title. Yeah. Now, that doesn't make up for the Newcastle loss, and I should say these are two very bad sides. But Tottenham in the same weeks played a Villa side that benched 7 players and a Leeds side that the day before had their status confirmed as safe. Even if Tottenham play Leeds on the Saturday, Leeds would have known that with a draw or a win, they'd have confirmed themselves as being safe in the league. And so there's nothing against Tottenham. We've all played different teams at different stages of the season. We played Burnley when they were down or whatever. But it can be as simple as a shit team has to play a team with nothing to play for, and a shit team has to play something with something, something to play for.
That Villa game where we won, I remember watching that game, and the commentary was after the game was weirdly positive towards us in terms of this is a completely different Spurs side. This is what we're talking about. Like, we've just saved ourselves from relegation and now we're going to potentially climb the table. Like, there's still half the season left.
Quite a big asterisk on it.
I'm looking at it,
Villa performance.
Villa were just awful.
Yeah.
Like, am I watching a different game here? They've rotated their entire team, and from the get-go, they were not really similar to watching Everton play at the weekend in terms of they weren't really in it. I was like, where is this?
I like that he stayed up when he still works up.
Yeah, that is good. Spurs have got a big slice of luck with those, because as much as Tazoubi's come in and he has had an impact, ultimately, a sorry Wolves team they just about got past, and Villa gave them, as they spread the legs and said, go on, do what you want. So that is basically the season there and then. So the fixture list matters. It didn't come down to it. The league probably would have had a real problem at the weekend had Arsenal needed to beat Palace and Palace rotated. They'd had a real problem. They'd had a much bigger problem if we were playing Brentford and Brentford needed to lose to us, as that could have happened. That would have been a huge problem. But for all the talk about integrity and stuff, that's always going to happen. Teams are always going to nail their survival and then have nothing to play for, check out. it's kind of unavoidable. And so the way it falls fixture-wise always plays a part. And in this case, it fell Spurs' way. By the way, you have said they're two poor teams. You're right. West Ham, 39 points. Most seasons keep you up.
46 they got.
West Ham got 39. Spurs got 41. I'm pretty sure. Not going down 46. So as much as
we got 41 points.
Well,
so as much as they are, again, two poor teams, more often than not that keeps you up. I know West Ham after previous highest total of going down as well. So, but West Ham left themselves too much to do. I think if you look at around sort of November time, I thought they could be the worst team in the league.
I was looking at goals scored earlier today.
do you know
Stop the Modelo's.
It's been a real long day.
I can't remember what game week it was. I didn't think it, and it wasn't like towards like the final quarter of the season. I was having a conversation with my brother about the relegation battle, rough conversation, and neither of us thought it'd be West Ham that we were battling against. We were talking more about Leeds and Forest, because at that point, I seem to recall West Ham was starting to build a bit of momentum.
Their performances were really good.
Yeah, Forest were building a bit of momentum as well. I mean, could be Leeds here that dropped back.
Yeah.
And then Leeds just go.
At a point where we played them, they hadn't lost at home since January.
Yeah. Because I looked at that point when Leeds were like, I went away from that conversation thinking, okay, I need to be looking at these Leeds games because hopefully they'll drop points. And when that wasn't happening, I genuinely had decided myself, we are 100% going down.
Yeah. And their performance levels compared to Spurs for many of those weeks was better. But the problem is, I said it on here loads of times, that you can't play well and lose when you're down there. You have to pick up the points. They played actually quite well against Brentford, lost 3-0. Like, that can't happen, because then you're going to have the stinker that you had against Newcastle and then lose 3-0 because you're not very good. That, like, when you have a good performance, you've got to pick up the points.
If the rare save on Fernandes lives long in the memory for us, how big that Kinski save was on Longstaff in the Leeds game, that'll feel like the Son Ortega one for us in terms of bitterness if you're a West Ham fan. I think I've maybe mentioned it. One of the most enjoyable elements of your season for me is that you took 4 points from Man City and gave 6 to us.
7 points swing.
With an Eze hat trick as well. So it's a fight of all the players for it to it's just like,
What was it? 2 and 2 in the second game.
I was
as well.
genuinely when he scored the hat trick, I was watching like, this club is cursed for sure. Definitely cursed.
If he gets 3 more next season, he's eclipsed Harry Kane and North London derby goals.
Wouldn't run it out either, would you? Yeah.
And I'm so happy that Spurs are still there next season for the North London derby. Definitely was not rooting for you to go down at any stage. I don't know how you set any kind of expectations for next season, because what's that? 2 17th place finishes back to back.
Yeah, it's really bad, really bad. Like, I know there's
the
been a lot.
Third season is always.
There's been a lot of strong talk of a sudden to like there's like, I think it was like 12 players can stay.
It never happens.
It's never going to happen. He's still got what, you're going to gut everybody else. You've still got to have a squad that you've got to submit to the Premier League to play with next season.
Can I cut you off for just 1 second there and just ask you, because I was going to answer this a little later on, how many of these players, if you go down the squad, and I'm not saying like I'd like to keep them, how many of those are, if the decent offer comes in tomorrow, we cannot sell them, must-haves for next season? How many in that team would you say? Because it's neither of the keepers. Romero seems to have burned the bridges.
Maybe 3 or 4.
So what? So we're saying
Maddison. I'd keep him.
Yeah, but
no one's also going to come in with an offer.
No,
of a guy just coming off an ACL.
But you got to hope that he comes back and he's the difference.
He was patting that badge a bit too much yesterday.
Yeah,
that trim.
No one's unsellable in that squad, are they?
That trim needs to go as well.
Yeah,
it's hard to think about it because it's just not going to happen. Nobody's going to be coming into these players.
Well, that was the thing. There was all the conversations about, there'll be a fire sale if they go down. Now, I don't know necessarily about their contracts. The market isn't there for a lot of these players, so they would be going but who's going to come in? I'm going to come in with money for Solanke, Richarlison, whatever. They aren't going to do that. They aren't going to spend anywhere near what Spurs would want. So as a result, they'd be sticking around.
If West Ham and Spurs both did a car boot, whose boot is busier?
West Ham's on the basis, I think theirs are more attainable. You can
I
buy
agree.
players, whereas Spurs would want some return on, again, Richarlison money, Solanke money, those other ones.
Okay,
The clubs aren't going to get nicked.
Okay, if everyone's a quid,
then Spurs get ransacked more quickly than West
you
Ham.
reckon?
I think you can sell yourself on some of those players.
I think
Romero,
you
Van der
mark-
Ven.
Sell yourself on. Archie Graham Bergvall, people are taking a heart because of their age and the profile they've
do you know
got.
what it is? Do you know what it is? It is Spurs players getting marked down more because it feels like a greater fall from grace, forgetting that we finished 17th in the table season before,
But
and it's because we were
Alex has been arrested for his
it's not
bad takes.
Yeah, I actually did go to the game, because obviously we were coming off the back of being in the Champions League because we won the Europa League this season before. It's easy to forget our league performance the season before.
They convinced themselves that was just we just didn't try in the league, as opposed to they stopped trying maybe about a month before the Europa League final. Really, it was in terms of rotating and stuff.
Can I ask you then, who's the most valuable commodity across both clubs?
Spurs or West Ham. But again, because of their age or whatever, they would probably Van der Ven would be actually someone would come up with the biggest money for. But I think the most valuable commodity would be one of Gray or Bergwijn, just because their age they're at. I like both players. I think the position they're in.
Not Mateus Fernandes.
You can sell yourself on. Yeah, he could be. He could be for the same reason. He's 21.
We're linked with him. I genuinely have no idea how good he is. I'll be so honest. Based on what I've seen this season, I haven't seen what other people have seen.
Early in the season, I thought he was a bit pedestrian. He's a tidy player, and then actually, if you look at him in the last few games, I do think he's stepped up when some West Ham players haven't. And he's put himself about more.
He's certainly
than maybe
good. I just don't.
Yeah.
If you told me that Arsenal are going to sign a midfielder this summer, and then you told me it was him, now would I rather him than Tonali? That's a different conversation. But I wouldn't feel enthused.
Yeah. Am I going? Well, that's a major upgrade on Zubimendi.
I'd be enthused
because
I'm not sure I am. He hasn't gone to Man United rather than everything else. Like, respectfully, Tottenham being interested, not a chance. Not a chance.
No.
Based on who else is interested, but you look at Bowen and
I think you can say yourself on Somerville as well.
The two centre backs, and you look at.
I think there's going to be a lot of clubs in for a pacey winger, and Somerville. And
do you think Bowen stays?
I think Bowen ends up staying because he falls into the bracket. What I said about some of the Spurs players, where West Ham will want a certain amount for him. I think a 29-year-old who turns 30 in December, I think I'm right in saying, clubs just aren't going to do that. I was having a conversation with my dad. He's like, someone will come in big for Bowen. He's like, I reckon you said about Liverpool, you lot will. And it's like, we are not.
They reckon
smashing big money on him to be a Salah replacement, for example.
No,
but the money they're going to
want Chiesa replacement, I guess.
They're not going to do a backup. The club bringing him in aren't going to spend that much on a backup, probably. And West Ham, I think, aren't going to budge on what is. He's the poster boy for them. So he's in the, albeit they've ended up going down, so it's not exactly the same, but like Zaha at Palace, where you're locked into a contract, you're at a certain age where people aren't going to cover the huge money that they want, and so you're kind of stuck in purgatory.
Could you not see him? Do we just before we...
And is he going to spoil for a move to if Fulham come in? He's not going to spoil for a move there. If he's got a good enough relationship with West Ham, if a big club comes in, he will. If not, I think he'll probably write it out on the basis that it's one season. If it's one season.
Did we have this conversation on or off the microphone last week? We spoke on it with Lawrence, but I don't know if we did this on the podcast or not. I just don't want to go over the old ground.
I don't think you did.
Okay. So, could we see him at Fulham or Crystal Palace or Newcastle or one of them? Or could you see him at West Ham? I just don't want to do the whole thing again. No.
Newcastle kind of strung a chord with me there.
They wanted him... I'm Man in Black. They wanted him before Elanga, but Elanga proved the more cost-effective option at 55 million. He'll come back up later.
Yeah. I don't. Newcastle did strike a chord there, but I can't see him anywhere else. I see him in that match against Millwall.
If we do the London,
I see that bloodbath of a match.
If we say he likes living in London, then you're looking at Palace, Fulham, like he's not coming to us.
No, and my point would be, I don't think he's
They're
spoiling
saying
for a
Chelsea
move
are
to those.
linked. Like I can't see that would feel very alien. Based
They
on
have
everything
they
else.
have made signings like that before though.
But to break
But like, is
but
Xavi-
to break their age thing from
Exactly.
Jared Bowen would be
Exactly.
odd.
This is Chelsea.
Yeah, and they have said they're going to learn the lesson. So it might be that they just sign players exclusive in their 30s, but no, I don't see it because those clubs, if they did stump up the cash, I think the West Ham fans then go, well, hang on a minute, you're the West Ham guy. I think they'll accept it if a huge club comes in, but for that, I think they'd turn their nose up at it, and he has got a bit of a pressure to stay. So unless it is a big move, I don't think.
Let me drag us back on track. So, keeping Thomas Frank too long is the sentiment I hear from most Tottenham fans. Getting Igor Tudor in rather than if you could convince De Zerbi with 5 to go, I don't see that you can't convince him with 12 to go. Yeah. That should have been, I think, what you would go and do, and that feels like a bigger mistake to me. I'm a Thomas Frank guy, so
I'm not in the camp of obviously hindsight is a blessing, but I was not in the camp of letting Thomas Frank go. I think I would have kept him. I think you when you let him go and you brought in Tudor, the moment that they announced him, I thought we're just gonna I had no positive feelings towards that whatsoever.
I can see Tottenham fans not wanting to see him on the World Cup coverage. That's how far
Frank.
Yeah, that's how far the disgust is with this man.
Did not like.
He's your Unai Emery.
I think
And he's a slick guy.
I don't think
If you're honest slot.
I don't think we would have been relegated with him at the helm.
I would probably agree, but I still think sacking him at the time was probably right. Like with most sackings, I think the sacking might have been right. It was the hiring of the next guy was wrong.
Ultimately, I think if you really wanted to send us on a downward trajectory, I think what they did was wrong. But
you'd reached a stale. You were so stale by the end of the Frank one. Yeah. I thought he got shortchanged, even from the jump with Spurs fans a little bit, but it had gone in that direction. And once the fans have gone that way, and the players look like they'd stopped as well. And at that point,
I am not saying this is a get out of jail free card in the slightest. We have had the worst injury record of any club this season.
It is
27 injuries.
Narrowly.
It is bad.
I know, but what I will say is, Arsenal have had equally bad injury runs, and they have been in a title battle with it. So I'm not using it as a get out of jail free card. But if you look at it, if you put the emotions aside and you look at it purely from a statistical point of view, you look at that a little bit more.
I don't think it's tough. You look at who's coming in and who's coming in for each side, and it's that at that point it's a pretty easy thing to work out.
Yeah, it's not strong enough squad.
When you look and say 4 managers at Tottenham have averaged their position between 17th and 20th place over the last 2 seasons,
that included does it?
Yes, that's where you start to look and say, okay, what should they have done? I agree with TK, with whoever. Thomas Frank probably should have gone, but I don't know. It's a very, very tricky one. And if you want to come back for the pre-season pod, we'll see what you think about where Spurs will finish next season. It all felt so positive when Tottenham narrowly lost the Super Cup, beat Man City 2 games into the season, and all of a sudden we're saying, what can this Tottenham team do? You referenced it, fair play to Paulinho. I think we all know his limitations. I know them even more now than I did off the back of him leaving Fulham, but he did stand there. He puffed his chest out when it counted, got you over the line. The Athletic deep dive is already out on Nuno Espirito Santo and West Ham. Doesn't sound like the players would want him back.
Really?
Some of the headlines from this, if I kind of route them off, many players believe the team was better prepared for matches under Potter than Nuno. They hid that well.
Gotta say,
Nuno often chose not to talk to players during halftime or after matches, so he's just pressing the spacebar on Football Manager. He was unable to bring in his backroom staff from his successful Forest spell because of the legal battle that was still ongoing. He would openly tell people around the training ground that he did not trust his coaches.
For fuck's sake.
Hermansen came in because the goalkeeper coach suggested him, and I've said this about my own club, so I'm not being a hypocrite here. Why is this the only position in football that we allow a coach to pick just because they're pals with a guy they've worked with before?
Nuts.
We ended up with that bloke, I forget even his name, you remember that bloke we had in the League Cup against City? That was a disgrace.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It started with H as well, didn't it?
I'll check that in a minute. But they say Hermanson only came in because the West Ham goalkeeper coach picked him.
And, Areola is not exactly a bulletproof goalkeeper, but there is nothing about Hermansen's performances for Leicester and for West Ham that indicate he's a Premier League goalkeeper. I said on here that it'll get you relegated, and sure enough, he got you relegated.
And I maybe let it slip my mind until I saw it again. They spent 20 million on him.
Yes, yeah.
Did they?
Yes.
Yeah, that 20 million could have been put basically anywhere else. Bear in mind, obviously, the goalkeeping situation's been a bit of a problem for them to the point where Fabianski left and they brought him back. But Areola, I think they knew what they were getting from him. It wasn't to the point where it was a problem position where you need to drop £20 million on a keeper that, it's not Danny Ward, but it's not far off.
That's something you're expecting Chelsea to just be doing when they've already signed everybody they need to in the season. They just throw him, just
an 8th choice keeper.
Just sign it. Just sign it. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I was looking through, because obviously, I mean, you've been on here saying just how bad he is for the last couple of seasons, but having seen that fee, right in front of you, is
West Ham fans were putting their hair up when they signed him because there was no doubt that there was no evidence to suggest that this guy was going to be a good signing, and at best, it felt like a pointless signing.
And then you look. Do they strike you as a team that you're imagining comes straight back up, or do they strike you as a team that just has so much to work on? You look at the ownership and the fact they've had a couple. We don't want to get into the controversies surrounding them, but they've had a couple of people jump ship in the last season or two.
So I will say, I had 3 teams loaded down as like some of the biggest underachievers of the season. 2 of them are very obvious. One of them is West Ham. One of them is Tottenham. But the reason I would say West Ham underachieving is that there is a lot of international talent in there. Mm. So if you're looking at it from a take away, if you look at it from a raw stat point of view, I would expect them to come straight back up. Yeah. But that's not the way it pans out.
No, you don't know who's gonna stay or go. As much as we said about the potential transfers earlier, I would have had more faith if I thought Nuno was staying and I didn't know what you just said about that article, because to the naked eye you'd have gone, well, he's getting more out of them than Potter. So at some point in the season it looked like they weren't responding to anyone, and so Nuno was probably going to start by them as well. And at some point something changed and the performances did pick up, and you kind of thought, well, he's doing something on the training ground here. Mm-hmm. And so I'm surprised that the players didn't.
So they said he also had the clause in his contract that his wages can be docked massively because they're in the Championship,
and they can sack him.
They can sack him without no compensation. Runarsson is the name of the
Runarsson. That was it. He was terrible.
I couldn't get Vicario out of my head, and I was like, it wasn't him.
No,
I know it wasn't him, but it wasn't leaving my head.
Yeah, I would have more. I would have had more faith prior to learning that. Now, if they end up with a new manager and everything, it's a lot getting thrown in. But on the flip side, if we are right in saying if someone doesn't come with big money from him, he ends up staying and goes, look, I'll give you 1 year in the Championship. If they, if you look at like that Castellanos, I just think he looks a handful of player. If you look like that in the Prem, chances are you'll probably score goals at Championship level. So they do have things to work with. They've, I know not for a while, but as a club they have been there before. It was the thing that was going to obviously test Spurs, was that they haven't been a proper relegation fight before, and they haven't been down, obviously. If they had, it would have been interesting to see how they respond to that. West Ham, as a club, have a little bit more preparation for that, even if the players themselves don't all necessarily.
For me, there seemed to be a feeling around Spurs the whole season that they'd never really go down, and yet they got to a point where there was a feeling around West Ham that they were the team that was going to, and both teams didn't really react in January. You look at what West Ham did. They signed Castellanos, I think it was, where he had a
Pablo
hamstring injury at the time.
Yeah.
Everyone told Nuno you shouldn't do it, and he said, I'm the manager, I choose who we sign. You look at Tottenham, they brought in Conor Gallagher, who said the fans initially didn't take to him. Now they're on board. Not sure I agree with that, Conor. I would probably wait for next season.
Yeah.
Just went down a tricky path, but let's get on to the other teams for this season. And the first question I want to ask, if we start with some positivity, if we talk about the teams that punched above their weight this season, the overachievers, and I wonder, TK, if you want to kick us off with who you feel meets that criteria.
I'll start with the obvious. In terms of the overachievers, I do think Sunderland, it kind of, because they started the season so well, I think we kind of became numb to kind of how impressive it is for them to do it. I think you're always at a bit of a disadvantage when you're the team that goes off in the playoffs anyway, just because you're that bit later and you can't necessarily plan until that moment. A lot of the times, the promoted teams, you may know, or you can certainly plan. And they absolutely stank in the playoffs. They snuck through the semi-final and then got battered by Sheffield United in the final and then snuck through again. So you were kind of like, well, how are they going to go through the levels here? Obviously sold Bellingham as well, which partly funded some of this stuff, but also you are losing your main goal scorer at that point. I think there's a lot of questions to answer coming in, so to do what they do is nuts.
Is it not the same, though, that I think when I reflect on Sunderland in that playoff campaign, the main takeaway I have is how good the atmosphere was. I remember the sound when Ballard scored as loud as I've heard any crowd through my TV at that point.
Yeah,
and then you carry into this season, and that's what got them to this point. We were away, again, as I say, at the point when we played Sunderland. At that point, they were unbeaten in the league. We were the two teams that had, I think we were unbeaten away, they were unbeaten at home or something like that. And we're leading right until the last minute, and they have a mix-up from the goalkeeper, similar to what we get against Wolves. But just that whole crowd, the ferocity of that team, the atmosphere, they were just proper punching into you. And the away form was terrible, but the home form gets them to 7th in the league.
And also the away form was they could pitch in enough that they could get by. And then, like I said, the home form, and that place gets up, it's, like I said, it's as loud as you're going to get. And the style that they implemented, I think on the pre-season, I spoke about this for Leeds, that I felt Ellen Road, they can really use that. We all knew that Farke basically openly said, look, I'm not going to come up and do what I did with Norwich previously. We're going to the big man. We've signed everyone is 6 foot plus, and you can see the profile of what they're trying to do here. And I thought that should lend itself to Leeds having a chance of staying up, because I think those things are better than if you come up and try and play and get found out, like, say, Burnley under Company or Norwich under Farke previously. I didn't necessarily know, being dead honest, with what Sunderland assigned, if they were going to be able to do the same thing. The same principles. It's a historic club with a brilliant atmosphere when the place gets going. But I didn't know from what they brought in, even down to, we'll come on to the signings, Xhaka. I think there was probably an assumption that they're getting a washed Granit Xhaka. Now, they actually got Granit Xhaka that's still got plenty to bring. Not just his personality, but in terms of how he can actually play. And that was a big part of it.
When you look at fan bases, this is one that can puff their chest out this postseason and say, they beat Newcastle home and away. I saw some talk from Newcastle fans saying, wait till we get a hold of you. Looking at, I think they spent 114 or 141 million in the summer, Sunderland.
Yeah.
A lot of that being good business. But they're like, look at those players you're signing. And when they get there, they beat them quite comfortably at home, to the point where Howe set up so weird and defensively that he was called out in the first game. And in the away game, they snatch it late. Robbie just saying, fuck off me, like he did like 3-4 times this season. And they smashed them there, and they were able to dance for the whole summer now and say, look what happened. Last time we played you, look what happened this time.
They've got Newcastle's number, even when, I've said it before, it's a Sunderland fan, they went down, and he said, still did the double over Newcastle. So they've got that in them, haven't they? And you look at the business they did, and you go, obviously, Xhaka jumps off the page, but and I know he had already been there on loan, so it would be, if you were doing signings of the season, it would be a cheat answer. But they made the Fay one permanent, and he made the step up to the Prem. Like, I mean, he looks as creative as a player as they could want.
I'm going to speak for both of us here, unless you tell me I'm wrong. I don't look at Aston Villa here and say that's a massive overachievement. When I look at the manager they have, the history they have, the money they've spent, that doesn't feel like an overachievement. That's, to me, that feels like they're around where they need to be, or if they have overachieved, it's slightly. It's not one that I would kind of sing about. And I look and I say there's three teams, and you've mentioned Sunderland. I look at Bournemouth in 6th place, which 18 games unbeaten at the end of the season, beat Arsenal, drew with City. You look at... There's 2 teams I would look at this season. I didn't come out of the Man City game when they beat us and say they outplayed us. I didn't come away from Villa and say they outplayed us. I came away from the Bournemouth game saying, what the hell happened there? We could have played for so long and they would still have beaten us. And I had the same feeling with Brentford when we went away there.
Yeah.
And I came out of that game and I had my uncle and Troy and whoever other Arsenal fans messaged me and saying, what do you reckon? And I said, probably can't complain too much about a draw after that game when you look at the grand scheme of things. And those 2 teams, Brentford, who've narrowly missed out, so Brighton get in, and we can ask about them in a second, and Bournemouth doing what they did. We spoke about managers leaving, knowing their managers leaving, and they carry on until the end. They got to play Arsenal with 10 days rest. They got to play Man City with 12 days rest. And that's what a manager is supposed to do. Give me a game plan that can get over the edge. If City had won that game, we'd have said they were so fortunate there.
Oh, yeah.
And this is what it is. Bournemouth
coming into a season where he's lost 3 of his back 4 in terms of Huijsen and Kirkes.
Yeah.
And you look at
Senesi. Zabani,
that's it. Yeah, exactly.
Senesi's on his way to that dumpster fire.
Yeah, and so that's crazy. To be able to do that is unbelievable. Partly testament to the hierarchy at the club, the profile of the players are able to then get in, because if you look at where they had Kirkes, they've just brought in Truther. But then also partly testament, look at Kirkes this season, is this on the manager? Is he just coaching the life out of these players? Because he's squeezed everything out of the group he's got.
One of the things I really enjoy is we've done the last few seasons is we've gone out for the opening game of the season, and going out for Liverpool, Bournemouth, and seeing Truffaut on that first game of the season up against Mo Salah, and he's done quite well for himself here, you know.
And again, we obviously, as we did at the beginning of the season, got out of it sort of somehow, as it were. But so many games, them and Brentford, it is, if you're somebody who just kind of casually watches games or whatever, and then you see your team coming up against Brentford or Bournemouth, you probably think, oh, fancy it. You must come away thinking like you've just been beaten up and had your lunch money stolen, because they're just an absolute nightmare. They're all over you.
Even Bournemouth, when I think about where things got started for Arsenal, and I look at this kit here, this was one, they played Palace on the first game of the season, they won. They went to Bournemouth and they beat them so easily away in the sun. It was just a coronation. The sun got going, everything. And then you look now, and I even looked down the list, to be honest, they won less games than Newcastle. They won as many as Everton. They won less than Brighton and Brentford and Chelsea and Fulham. But the feeling around Bournemouth was, and I feel like for these teams, and I put Brentford in that as well, if you're not going to win it, and if you're not going to get the top honours, one of the greatest compliments you're going to have is that whatever team plays you goes away and says, we knew we were in a game against them. They were a rough game. And none of us, when we saw Bournemouth on the calendar, were looking forward to the game that weekend. And so for them to get there, it's, when you were saying someone's got to replace Pep Guardiola and someone's got to replace any of these managers, Marco Rose has got to go in there and replace Iraola.
That's tough.
And he might get a good start because they're going to say, it took Iraola 9 games. But if it's not working after 9 games, they're going to say, we're in this position. What the hell is going on now? And
he does have Europe to now contend with. So you are going to a new job, place tough act to follow, and you've now got to do the Thursday, Sunday thing.
They're saying, and I wonder if a certain offer might change their mind. They're basically saying, we ain't selling these big players. Krupi, no one's having him, or a team's going to have to pay a horrible amount to get them in. And we're one of the ones supposedly interested in Krupi. So he's already an Arsenal legend. We'll see what happens there. Brighton are a weird one. I have such a feeling towards them that I kind of didn't realise where they were until they were. They've lost 3-0 on the final game of the season when they needed something to happen against a United team that had nothing to play for. Should disqualify you for that, to be honest. But they're there. Herzler, you're up to contend with.
Week before, the same with Leeds, by the way. Leeds were already checked out, supposedly. Beat Brighton 1-0.
And so we'll see what happens with them now and how they manage it and how the squad deals with it.
He's obviously a very good young manager. The interesting thing with him is I have seen it's been up and down with the Brighton fans with him. I know earlier in the season they were stagnating and the point
where they played us was a lot of unrest.
Weren't overly keen. And even I was really struck by this, didn't really seem to get picked up on. He was doing his applauding the fans or whatever. They've got into the Conference League. I would say nearly half, not quite half, of the people in this shot are not applauding him back. Which is just a weird thing of they look like they're making a point of not. And I just wonder, that's fine like now when the going's good. If they feel that way, start next season badly, those fans can quickly go, yeah, they obviously aren't fully having it. There's something there with him, whether it's his personality or what. And I might be reading way too much into that. But I was just struck by it.
As a personality like that, you do need all of your bunch on board because nobody else is going to be. And Arteta is in the same boat. To be honest, De Zerbi will be in the same boat. No neutral fan particularly likes him as a person, hearing his interviews and all of the style and the way he deals with that.
If you're going to be a bastard, you need, it's got to be our bastard. Even if they don't.
Just looking, that's a hell of a tan Alex has got there. I don't know if that's been picked up on the camera. He's been outside.
He's
doing well sitting next to me as well. That's helping him.
I will just like a little segue.
I couldn't not say.
You were looking admiring.
I've spent a lot of time outside. I will just say a quick story. I was out running on Saturday. Sunday. I was out running on Sunday.
I'm still listening.
Before the games. I was actually running from my house to my parents' house. It's from Tewkesbury to Gloucester. It's a nice run to do, and it's also point to point, so you're committed no matter what. Obviously, it's been really hot, and it's the first time this year that I've sort of done a session like that. So the one job that I had to stick to on this run was keep it nice and controlled and keep your heart rate nice and controlled. 10 minutes into the run, I'm running along the main sort of road going in towards Tewkesbury Town. There's this house Kennett up on the right. It's got like banners and balloons on outside. And just from a distance, it's somebody's birthday. It's not. It's an Arsenal fan's house and they've absolutely decked the house out. So immediately as I'm 10 minutes into this run with another hour and a half to go, my blood pressure and heart rate starts to climb enough to the point of when my coach said, "What happened there?"
How do you voluntarily keep your heart rate in check?
Just do.
You've seen
wasn't very helpful.
You've seen Crank?
Yeah. Great film, disrespected on the Movie Madness podcast. Yeah, those were the teams we've mentioned so far. Brentford,
would have
Bournemouth,
to say,
Brighton.
Bearing in mind this in the pre-season pod, I felt quite strongly that Brentford would be there or thereabouts in a relegation fight. I think I did put them in the bottom three. Keith Andrews has done unbelievable. If I say about
Brentford,
yeah. If you consider replacing Thomas Frank, there was always going to be a tough gig anyway. But then when you've lost Tony the year before, then you're losing Buemo and Wissa this summer. That's some going to be able to achieve what they've done.
I don't think we were far away, probably a game away from having him in this conversation, no disrespect. But David Moyes at Everton, they finish 14th, I think it is. In the 13th in the end, just based on how the results went on the final day. And I never fully understood the West Ham fans' frustration as much as I could maybe acknowledge it. And for the first time, it really hit me yesterday when I saw his interview and he was asked, European football's on the line. Yeah. Everton fans, do you understand their frustrations? And he said, not really. No. Yeah. And I thought, that would annoy me if I was a fan. And I could see that maybe I didn't appreciate the West Ham fans feeling in the same situation. Because I've compared over the years, it being the same as the De Gea situation. he was right to go, but maybe the one in was wrong. But at the time, I didn't fully grasp it. And that was one for me yesterday where I thought, Everton are a big team. They're a team that can compete. They're a team that traditionally has competed, at least in the top half of the table. So to say you can't appreciate frustrations when you're finishing in 13th position behind Sunderland and Brighton and Brentford and Fulham, I thought was a
you think about them in a similar sort of vein to how, like, because I did have Villa in my overachievers of the season, but you're right in terms of it's a paradox of it's teams that are not quite as good as the top 4 teams that you think of in your mind with the massive budgets and the legacy behind them of Premier League titles. But they're one of the teams that you expect to capitalise when those teams are not doing what they should be doing. So when Liverpool are dropping off, Villa's capitalised on it. So I do think, like, are they? I mean, at one point they were in the title race per se. If they had stayed in that battle to the final few weeks, you'd have them definitely as an overachiever.
We've done that the last 3 years now. We get to December, Villa are overachieving. Are they in the title race?
Yeah, but he does have them punching above. Yeah, generally.
But like they're achieving what that you would expect them to achieve when those other teams that should be there are underachieving. So it's kind of like they've done the job. So I understand that perspective. Everton are one of the teams that have not done that. So I would put them more in the underachieving camp.
I think the frustration for Everton fans is he's come in, he's steadied the ship. Now you're supposed to do something. You don't just steady. You could see his face almost blank when the journalist sort of said, "What's next?" It was a bit like more the same, and that's the problem for. No, but it was a bit like you're looking for the manager to kind of go, "What can we do next year
for the summer?"
And he kind of didn't.
He's never been that guy though.
No. But it's come up with something a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they're a point better off or worse off than we were last season, same position. So you're becoming a little bit like Palace under Roy, which is good, solid, stable, but it was kind of
good
came in the same position each time. At some point, we're going to want to see something different.
I don't like to laugh too much at him, but I saw a clip from the Sports Bar last night with Cundy and O'Hara, and they had a West Ham fan on there, and they were going through the fixture list saying, "Bolton, good day out."
Yeah, sort of going like.
I didn't like how much I was laughing, but I really was.
When they go in the Welsh teams, and like, that's basically Europe. Yeah. You're basically going in Europe. You're away. It's abroad.
I thought I don't like this, but I'm nodding along. Okay, underachievers. TK, maybe a segment that you can lead off with.
Oh. You need to just give me this one grace, because I think there's only one team that we should be talking about here.
No.
We haven't already.
There's more than one team.
Not that we, because we've already spoken about West Ham and Tottenham a lot. There's one team we should be talking about.
I think I know who he's going to gun for.
I know who you're going to gun with. I'm still going to go to TK first, though, because Jack could have joined us for this one too, which I think is where you would have been going.
Yes, absolutely.
The underachievers this season, TK, maybe you have a different direction to where I think you're going. Where do you want to start with this?
Yeah, I mean, I know AJ said there's two obvious ones. I think most people, the two obvious ones would be Spurs, obviously. And I think Liverpool would be probably the next team off people's tongue.
I don't think Spurs underachieved. They overachieved.
I'm literally in the mindset with Chelsea of, Joey Barton in that final game against City.
Save it. Take everyone
City,
down with you.
And he said, "You're going off, you take one with you." That's how I feel as a Tottenham fan. Nice. I'm taking them with you. Like, in my mind, I was thinking, we do get relegated. How can I try and pitch it in a way that it's like Chelsea have been relegated as well? That's
like, as good as you could have landed the plane on
that's
Joey
the mentality that I'm in. So
isn't Xabi Alonso also one of your favourite midfielders of all time?
Yeah, that was a real kick in the teeth.
Okay, TK.
That was a real kick in the teeth.
Are you leading with Chelsea or are you leading with someone else?
So I was going to say, I do think Chelsea, as they seem to avoid a lot of conversations, would then enter the mix. I think it's pick between those three teams. I think Liverpool, Spurs and Chelsea are your underachievers. 10th for Chelsea. It's mad.
Yeah, that caught me off guard. I didn't come that till today.
I know it's very condensed in there anyway, and I know because we were part of it for a decent period of time, but that's nuts.
It's a segue because you mentioned Xabi Alonso, but it's just a quick story. I've always liked him, like when he was at Liverpool in his prime and when he was at Madrid, but he is also, and don't ask me the year, don't ask me the tournament, but when we had one of our fantasy teams
Don't
leagues
bring
going
it
along,
up.
I put Xabi Alonso into my team as a centre defensive midfielder.
No, Alex, you pick 3 defensive midfielders in fantasy football.
Yeah. But you never remember this. Sean came in heavy for me and was laughing at me and they were like, Xabi Alonso bagged me a ton of points, and that was the year that I won in our league table. I won that fantasy league. I 100% won it. There was no money on the line, but he was. I don't disagree. Putting 3 centre defensive midfielders in was probably not the way to go.
Probably,
yeah.
But I was smirking when Xabi Alonso was bagging me point after point and watching Sean tumble towards the bottom of the table.
I know 4 people that have claimed they won that tournament.
Yeah,
I can't even remember.
It was all like who shot me a paintball. There's a lot of people saying
I cannot remember if it was a European
World
Championship
Cup.
or World Cup. You sure it was World Cup? It must have been in and around 20. Well, it must have been in and around that
World
pocket.
Cup 2014.
You think?
Got in my head.
Okay.
I feel like it was before that.
Okay, it's Euro 2012 then.
Must be the Euro 2012.
I wouldn't have known you in 2010, so it's
It must have been. It's one of those two. But yeah, like you've got so many different fantasy leagues of like individual friends. I definitely won one of them.
Okay, that's.
We'll get back to Liverpool.
Anyway, sorry.
Because you can't spend 500 million as league winners and not get this tag.
Much as 500? I think it's 400 odd.
We're rounding up.
Yeah.
It was 460.
It was enough.
60.
It was enough. Yeah.
Could have rounded down to 450, but
yeah. Look, yeah, you're right. Yeah, there's no getting around it. It's been a woeful season. Not quite from the start, but not far off, really. And any situation whereby you've won the league season before, the only way you can do it is to retain, right? And if you end up in a title race but fall short, that's acceptable. But the fact that we basically haven't been, since probably the confirmation of that was probably in November when City dicked us, was probably the final, this team isn't in a title race. It was the final nail in the coffin.
That Joe Cole clip done the rounds for you as much as it has for me. Twice in the same video, he basically says, Arsenal, not a chance, he says. And he says, for Liverpool, he says, I think this is the first time in years I'm not thinking about who's going to win the league. I'm thinking about how much of a canter they're going to win it by.
When did he say this?
Pre-season.
Okay, right. Yeah. Yeah, and because it was seen as a summer of good recruitment.
I can remember one of them, Danny Murphy saying, if they get Wirtz,
it's done, yeah. I mean, he was on TalkSport when he was saying it, so caveat that. But yeah. And it hasn't been, has it? And you don't really know what next season will look like. So that's a sign of Champions League football. All the players have obviously been briefed to say this is the bare minimum, because it is the bare minimum. And we only got it via 5th place and the coefficients, which probably shouldn't get you Champions League football either. So
thank us for that. So
yeah, thank you.
Chelsea have had a worse season than you, haven't they?
100%. If you have them if you put them at,
they finished 10th.
Our expectations were higher, but yeah.
100%. When you always put them, you always mark them down heavily because of the money that they spent.
I don't.
We did as well this year, though.
If I raise a potential conspiracy theory, do you think Chelsea intentionally lost to Sunderland yesterday? A win was the only possible way they could have secured any European football. Is there a thought process that, much like United this season, playing one game a week under Xabi Alonso, that they were better placed to have a good run next season?
As in terms of if they had not ended up, they would.
If they lose the game yesterday, they're better off next season. I remember us competing with you. One of us was going to get the Conference League and thinking, what's the difference for me between 9th place and 8th place? I hope Tottenham finish 8th. And it was when Gareth Bale scored a hat-trick on the last game of the season to get it.
Yes.
Is there a thought process that maybe Chelsea didn't want European football next season?
100%. 100%.
I think people would be quietly glad, yeah. But is it we're not winning this game, lads? I don't think that conversation's happening. I think you go, I don't think this squad needs too much excuse to go, don't run around too much, lads. And Callum McFarlane is your manager, so, you know.
You don't, it's...
Another red card.
There's no
There you go.
there's no pulling the horse up in a race. It's more of you just do nothing to give that horse the best possible chance to win the race. Kind of sabotage.
If they were near the end of the game, then they could have made some substitutions to entice Sunderland on rather than.
Yeah, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that they're going to have. Like I said, Shabby having one game a week is useful.
You look at it. What does being in the Europa League, and let's say they go into the Europa League next season and they win it, what does that do for them?
And the Conference League in particular, there isn't really even like any financial incentive. When you look at the money you get, even if you go all the way and you win it.
Yeah.
Comparatively, Newcastle in 12th place is you're lucky Liverpool and Chelsea were so bad.
Yes, and Eddie Howe's escaped a fair amount of scrutiny as a result of that.
I think
Dump it all on Anthony Gordon, basically.
Yeah. I think you look at Chelsea. There's obviously quite a bit of sourness with Chelsea in terms of like, well, where do they go now? What do they change? What do they do? What's their identity beyond being a plastic club? And where do they? Do you know? It's similar to us in terms of how do we get out of this dumpster fire? In terms of like, what's the moves you make? I don't know.
Chelsea at that end
I know
of the
they've got
table
Xabi
next
Alonso
season would give
coming
me
in.
So much life.
They've got Xabi Alonso coming in, and I think he's great. I think he's the best option that they could have gone for. But we've seen what Chelsea have done with managers like this before. Like good prospects that they've gone and got the best man that they could, and it turns into a dumpster fire after 2 seasons.
Is he the best Spanish midfielder managing in the league next season?
What?
No, is the answer.
100% he is. But,
The interesting thing with them is, can he have an Arteta impact in terms of getting a club that is kind of in a bit of a shambles with a hierarchy and ownership that kind of plainly doesn't know what it's doing, and can he go in there and go, here's the plan, you're going to listen to me, and can they have it in them, like the Cronkies at Arsenal, to go, good luck, we're going to give you the support you need, we're going to change our approach. Can this ownership group do that? They put out all the right messaging at the end of this season to suggest they will. Will they? I know you don't seem convinced. I know Lawrence, for example, last week on the pod was like, "Well, I don't think anyone can succeed in this club in this situation." So
I feel like I really hope it doesn't. But if it was genuinely going to be I don't think the leadership of that club is got it in them to not continue the merry-go-round that we're on.
They said there is a period of reflection after sacking
but we've heard it all before.
Yeah, this is can they change?
Let's say they do, and it's Xabi Alonso at the helm. I'm worried he may be the guy for that.
Yeah.
You're not worried any more than he is.
I'm terrified.
No, I am. I've got 2 brothers that are Chelsea fans.
I'm sweating. It's not just because of the temperature in the room.
Yeah, I should acknowledge that at some point.
The main thing is, well, if we say outside of Arsenal, the league is in a bit of a state of flux, then if Chelsea don't have European football and Xabi Alonso can, certainly to begin with, get some form, growing some feel-good factor around the place, all they would have to do is put on a bit of a run and be kind of the next team after Arsenal. And we would all say, what a great job he's done. Yeah, so there's chances there for them. I think Chelsea fans probably felt, not a coincidence, obviously they announced it on the day of the cup final they lost. I think they felt reinvigorated by the Alonso appointment in a way that probably anyone else they realistically could have got couldn't have made them feel the same way.
Can I ask you a couple of questions more and then we'll close out for the day? So, best signing of the season. Let me ask you first.
I think the Xhaka one obviously does leap off the page because of, I think, the all-round impact he's had.
17.5 million.
That's great business, you got to say. The overall impact he's had, I do think, kind of gets overlooked a little bit in terms of as a signing. I do think Calvert-Lewin for Leeds, I've had my history of him on this podcast, but if you can get...
You hate English strikers.
Yeah. I did not think he still had this in the locker in terms of being able to put that many games together. I think he looks back to his best, like athletically and physically, in a way that I thought he was done. Injury-wise, I thought that wrecked him. I mean, if you've got a Premier League striker of that quality in a team that's coming up, you've got a chance of staying up. That if you take him out of the equation, at least as good as they've been, they're right in it. So he would probably be another contender in there. I do also think as well, as we know he was decent money and he doesn't start each week. I actually don't think Arsenal win the league right, is it? So I actually think when you look at it, I think set of circumstances kind of came that he ended up being signed. I do think he probably won't be discussed as a signing, but actually, unfortunately, I do think Shirky will look to be an unbelievable bit of business for that money.
That one's not going to leave my mouth, so if you want to say that about him...
I would love it to not, but I think that's great business.
Did you hear what Wayne Rooney said about this conversation, and do you agree if so?
What did he say?
Wayne Rooney picked an Arsenal player as the signing of the season. Any idea who he said?
No.
Where's the 14 shirt?
He's going to say Gyökeres.
Victor Gyökeres, he says. Okay. He says Victor Gyökeres is the signing of the season.
Really? Why?
Well, he got the headlines he wanted.
21 goals. Arsenal win the league.
Yeah, I don't know about you. It didn't feel like he was the difference.
No. Didn't feel like it to me.
No.
But I don't know how executives do it. It was my first kind of Moneyball feeling when I think of Jonah Hill in that situation. And as I say, the player I'm looking at Madueke, and I'm looking at Martinelli, and I'm looking at whoever else and saying, how can I sell you after we've just won the league? How can I sell any of you after we've just won the league? So
that manager, don't you worry.
Yeah, that's a conversation for them to have. I agree with the Xhaka point, to be honest. I think because of how bad Zubimendi was, probably the last 6 to 8 weeks has overshadowed how good he was
first half of the season
for the first 80% of the season, where I thought he was fantastic. I think I said he was player of the season going into Christmas, so I'd be remiss if I didn't mention him. I don't think he is signing of the season, but I think for when I look down the league, if I was looking at an Arsenal signing to be in the conversation, he's not the signing I love the most of that bunch. It's probably Hincapié, to be honest with you. When I look down that list as someone that just gets me, like, feel like when I watch him, I can just appreciate everything he does. But Eze, I wouldn't disagree with. I think you can look at Ruffs for Sunderland. I think you can look at Siddiqui for Sunderland. I think you can look at so many players across that team and say they did. I think you can.
I've not got. So I went with along the veins of a striker. That's the difference for a team. And yes, it's over the final line. You maybe think a bit different, but Igor Thiago at Brentford.
He was signed last season, but he did his ACL immediately.
Okay, so it feels like he finished on 22 goals.
Yeah, which is ACL in a pre-season game last season, 2 weeks before the start of the season.
Okay.
I like your thinking, though. Worst signing of the season, I think, is a more interesting conversation. TK, I don't know if you want to box off a couple of them first. They're not in my mind. I don't have Wirtz, I don't have Isak, because the way I look at things typically is when I look at someone I want to have the worst signing of the season, I'm looking at you and saying, you're completely useless for that club now. There's nothing you can do moving forward. Whereas when I look at Wirtz and Isak, who I think for most people would be 1 and 2 in the conversation, I can see that in seasons to come, there is at least something I can garner from those players.
Yeah, but that's...
I'm just saying how I look at it typically.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be curious now, the counter choices you do have. I would have...
They both play for Newcastle.
Okay, I should have not that when you noticed when you mentioned one of them earlier. I do think the Wirtz one, because the Isaac one you can kind of excuse, and also when he has played, he has got a goal here and there and look sharp in some games.
I think it's the goals he's scored don't feel like that's why they signed him. It feels like put striker X in that situation, they'd score that goal.
And I think that's a bit dismissive with someone who has some good instinctive finishes in there. I'm not saying no one else could score them, but not many. But Wirtz has just given a whole lot of nothing. And you spend £116 million on a midfielder to do extraordinary things. And I think when he's been good games, quote unquote, have been perfectly fine. And he's never done anything that's kind of gone oh wow, he's never wowed me this season.
That's 11 million more than Declan Rice, and you look at this season.
Yeah, and even if you go, well, Rice has been unbelievable, but I've got to see something. I said, give me half of what Shirky gave to City, and I'd be more optimistic about him going into next season. As it is, I don't know what we're going to get, but you are right that we are probably going to have to build around Isaac and Wirtz and pray that they work out.
Wissa and Elanga are the two for me. Wissa at 55 million, not available for 75% of it, same as Isak, I would say, but just looking completely useless when he does play. And Elanga, when I look at what you could get for 55 million around this league, he's not been better than Madueke. He's not been better than Cherky. He's not been better than any of the other wingers. No. Has he been better than Kudus? Has it like you can go down and you can look? No. That one just looks like we were very big on him and saying they couldn't get Mbomo, but Elanga, maybe it's just me. He's got the pace. He's got
season he'd had at Forest. It made sense. It did make sense,
and it just hasn't transpired in that way.
I think one of the worst signings of the season. I think Eze's up there.
That is ridiculous. That's for what he did to you.
I'd say lean into the mic to tell us your reasoning.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look past, so say if he scored the 2 goals and a hat trick, not against us, a different side.
This is, yeah.
He's not really. He
was meant to be 5 goals.
He was meant to be. So obviously, we were in for him. Apparently,
yes.
You got him over us.
Yes.
Big money signing.
Yes.
You know, he's not really at all cemented into that team in any way.
He's starting over Odegaard at the end of the season. The club claps in.
Is he the reason that it was so close in the end?
Assist against Man City, goal against Crystal Palace, goal against West Ham.
In terms of
goal
value,
against Newcastle.
In terms of, think about it from a Moneyball perspective, in terms of what you bought him in to do and what the money you spent and what your return is.
Yes.
You still think?
Yes, I would say he scored a goal in the Champions League semi-final, the Champions League
quarter-final.
Premier League. So I'm saying we got the money's worth. You can look.
I don't think you got the money's worth.
I think if you didn't play any other game other than the Spurs game, we got a hat trick.
I will concede.
If we say Odegaard is fit for every game and Eze isn't, Arsenal aren't in the same position.
I don't think you can say you got your money's worth. I don't think you can say that. No, come on.
I don't think they win the league if they don't sign him. I don't think they do. I think he had a level of impact in a collection of games.
But in that respect, it's like if they don't sign him, but they sign somebody else, would they have done the equal job? You expected him to do more than
if they signed Xavi Simons instead of him, I don't think they would.
I can tell you, Berto wanted Esposito from Inter Milan instead, and Arteta said, "We're going to go get Eze."
I think there was a period of time where Arsenal played with no freedom and it did look like the tension and nerves was getting to him. Just him being on the pitch seemed to alleviate some of that.
I told you, he told Arteta we need some space.
And that's before I knew that story I was saying.
I had him wrote it down before I heard that story as well.
Yeah. But
if that's true.
I don't know why you invited us to shoot you in there. I don't know why you did it.
Yeah. Anyone say that? Not you. TK, we've handled this conversation a couple of times in the last few weeks, so I'll just see if your opinion has changed. Player of the season, who do you have in that position?
I wouldn't.
I hate my choice.
I wouldn't kick off and riot if Bruno was your choice, but I do think ultimately over a bodywork over the season, and I'm not going to pick a goalkeeper, I will go with Declan Rice. I do think ultimately he is the most important part. As an individual, this Arsenal team is about the collective, but if you had to take one part out and they're in trouble, I do think Declan Rice would be it. I know it is over the course of a season, I do think, whereas Bruno, actually largely not his fault. I do think Amorim was pretty clueless, and I don't think being played that position is a total excuse, but it's part of why I think in the first half of the season he wasn't as good. The way he has kicked on, I think is very impressive. I do think he's gone to another level, but I'd still edge.
Yeah, I think Rice, Raya, Gabriel, Saliba all deserve it more than Bruno does.
I had Bruno Fernandes, but obviously
we've just seen what your opinions were.
I hate Bruno Fernandes. I hate Bruno Fernandes, but I do.
You hate Arsenal more. TK, for team of the season, what formation have you gone with, just so I can see how to do this?
Effectively 4-3-3. You can kind of tweak it.
I've got a 4-4-2. If we do the defence first, because I have a feeling we'll have largely similar. Goalkeeper,
Riot.
Yeah.
Right back, Timber.
Yeah.
Saliba, Gabriel, centre backs. And I've got Nico O'Reilly as my left back.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Give me 2 of your central midfielders.
Bruno and Rice.
Agreed. Who's your third?
Dom Sob.
So I've got the same. I've just got it in a 4-4-2. So.
Okay.
I've got Semenyo then also, and I've got 2 strikers, whereas you've got a striker and a winger, so you've got Haaland and who else?
I've got Semenyo and Shirky. I'm putting Shirky on one of them.
Okay, Shirky's not in my team. Igor Thiago is up there in a 4-4-2 for me as my team of the season.
I do get it, but as much as 3PM Merchant is selling him a bit short, he is a bit of some of the bigger games with Igor Thiago, I have been a bit disappointed. Now, there are also games in there where you go, like, he probably should have scored against, like, United, for example. So he's missed some good chances where on a bigger stage he should have. But I do think there's a reason. Maybe they will, but I don't think it doesn't seem like clubs are queuing up to nick him off Brentford yet. I do think they're going to go one more
Brazilian
season.
striker.
Yeah.
The best records.
But normally they go
a
season like that at Brentford. People are queuing up just to nick you. Anyway.
Can I just counter a little bit to that and say that when I look at this team and I look at all 11 of the players that I have down, if they're fit, any one of those players is in the starting 11 for their manager. Cherky hasn't been in the starting 11 for at least a third of the season by Pep Guardiola.
Sure, but I just felt his impact on the City team, I actually think when he came into the fold, was probably more profound than actually... Obviously, Doku is constantly being put in this, and I think, as you've touched on, he's good for a handful of games. I think Cherky had if they had got over the line, I'd probably talk about him in a similar way to what I was saying about Eze with Arsenal. I think there was something about his kind of individual brilliance would have inspired them there. So
yeah,
that's the reason.
Probably need a little bit of a step back for me because I do hate his guts. Man. And when I look at that last game of the season as just a passing gift, there was no shot of Bernardo Silva crying on that pitch. He got out of there so quickly.
Could have given us that.
I got Cherky. And by the way, if you're going to do keepy ups on the pitch, break dancing on the pitch, if you're going to do interviews and cry down the camera, you better stand front and centre and cry down that lens for me. Rodri did it. Haaland gave us a little sympathetic and then say, oh, I'm glad a Norwegian won it. No, you aren't. So keep that to yourself. But Bernardo, as a last laugh, I didn't get to see him in misery. Fuming about that. But anyway... a last question for you here, TK, before we have a few questions on the England selection, because we'll do that, I guess, in a grander scale across the World Cup. Who is goal of the season? Who scored the goal of the season for you?
I think they probably got it right on Match of the Day.
Strongly disagree.
Okay, I think they probably
Who did they pick?
Harry Wilson.
Harry Wilson
gave it
against
to
Palace.
Okay.
I do think because it had a bit of, it was nice interplay beforehand, and then I like the technique to. Obviously, Harrison Reed sticking on top.
That's the one.
But it is ultimately reductionist to kind of go, he's just twatted it. But it kind of has a little bit. And as much as we can all twat and not find the top corner like he did, I do think there's a bit more technique in the Wilson one.
I think if we're going technique, then it's Szoboszlai against Arsenal.
Maybe.
You think he's just twatted it as well?
No. He has got. We know he's got that technique. There is a bit of that as well. But I do think a dead ball situation, I do think is a little bit easy for someone like him in particular.
I guess my feeling with the Wilson one was great technique, but is it a great technique? And if I was to give a comparison for it, and maybe you'll say it's an unfair comparison, I've always found the fascination with Thierry Henry's goal against Charlton to be a bit strange to me. A back heel from the edge of the 6-yard box has never been that special to me. Like I would expect that any professional stood up in that position can back heel it. And Wilson, I would compare Wilson's won 2 Mitomas against Chelsea last season, where I would say incredible technique. I really enjoyed seeing it happen. I was stood in the Emirates actually before the game we beat Wolves, watching on the big screen, and I heard a lot of oohs and ahs, but it just didn't. It doesn't feel goal of the season special. It feels like remember that Wilson goal against special.
Yeah, maybe true. But that's looking at the contenders. I kind of similar feeling about. I don't think there was one that made me go, that has to be. I think Mitoma against Spurs, by the way. You mentioned Mitoma. His would be.
I said it on the podcast the Monday after that no one gave it enough appreciation.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. Me and Sam did. You didn't.
A long day.
And look, a rough one for you, but Dorgu against Arsenal. Just maybe it's because it came from Dorgu, but I was.
That was a handball. That was a hand. I don't know how that's not keeping when I watched it back.
Yeah.
The Harrison Reed one. I'm seeing that in real time, and the moment plays a huge part.
Yes.
But any goal that makes me like out loud,
and when it looks like we've nicked it, and then they obviously go and do that, it does feed into it, as opposed to Wilson obviously scoring against Palace. Funny, we mentioned Wilson as well. All the team of the years, I reckon, if we're doing it 2 months ago, probably have Harry Wilson in, and now just that last little bit just dropped off.
Okay, last question here I've asked about the England squad. For the people listening to this, or watching this, I guess rather, they can see this play out. I did a thing the other week when Trossard scored against West Ham, where I coordinated a thumbnail for, and if I kind of get everyone involved here, Alex, if you want to put your hands on your head, maybe TK, if you want to look disgusted with what I'm doing, and I'll maybe celebrate down the lens.
Okay,
and
brilliant. It's a little transparent, right?
Well, that's why I like to get it involved.
Nice.
So we'll do it that way. So you're not looking. Okay, you are looking disgusted. And we carry on. So that's how these things go. So people can see that play out.
People just see how the sausage is made.
Exactly. Otherwise, I'm basically just scrolling through my phone until I see you smirk and taking a screenshot, and that's usually how this has gone in the last few
fair
weeks.
amount of smirking.
Okay, last thing then, the England setup, and we'll talk about this a bit more next week. TK, if I ask you to pinpoint one omission and one inclusion as to what really either got your back up or kind of made you stand to attention, what would that be?
I do think a real simple one, because you can go one in, one out. I don't know in what world you have Dan Burn over Harry Maguire. I don't know. Harry Maguire wouldn't just be in my squad. I think he would be in my starting 11. Now, if you wanted Konza and Gahey, I wouldn't argue with you too much, but I think Maguire would be the next cab off the rank. I don't get it. I don't see Newcastle fans going, no, Dan Burn has to be in there. I don't get it. Outside of Eddie Howe, I don't see anyone campaigning for that. So I know Tuchel kind of came out and said when he called Maguire up to that squad, did he say he's still the 5th choice centre-back? Well, this would indicate he might not even be that, by the way, with some of the other options in there.
He said, didn't he, that there would need to be a couple of injuries for Maguire to be in there.
So, we can't say he didn't warn us, but also he brought him back into the fold to then say that, which was a bit odd. But also, it's coincided with probably his best run as well.
Did he not score the winner in that game as well?
Might be right.
Yeah.
I think so.
He did.
And I think it's obviously United have been on a good run this time, and he's been part of that. So I found that just odd, just a weird selection.
I disagree with a lot of the chat that was like, this is why he's not picked him, when it was his family members talking out, whereas like, first of all, if he was included, his family members wouldn't be talking out.
Yeah.
And secondly, this is just kind of, it is what it is. I disagree with him going to the press before the squad was announced, but family members saying stuff after it's been leaked, I kind of have no real issue with it. Even if it's a bit cringe, I have no real issue with it.
Yeah, if it's in his shoes, I'd probably be like, probably keep it to yourself. But
worst decision ever, his brother said, and it's like, it's kind of how you're supposed to feel if it's your brother.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, some of the stuff around, that's what it is with Maguire, or Tuchel's chosen unity in the squad. Is there any indications that Maguire's like a bad guy? All the teammates seem to like him.
Opposite.
Around England and at United, they've all kind of rallied around him. So
I think he slots in.
And he's travelled well previously. So
don't want to pull you up too much either. As much as Dan Burn, I don't think should be in the squad. Kwanzaa feels.
Well, you did ask me for one. Was the reason I say that. But yes,
if I take him out, John Stones.
John
What the hell is he doing in this squad?
Yes,
Yeah.
like, has he played 4 games or something crazy? Like
And he's not been
he's
good
semi-retired. He's, the whole point is that it feels a bit like when Capello called up Ledley King, and then when he broke down in training before the tournament, it was like, well, yeah, because he can't train. And I do wonder, look, if John Stones can play,
one game, man.
yeah, if John Stones can play, then great. But there's no evidence that he can.
No.
So yeah.
So my issue: Nico O'Reilly and then Lewis Skelly out. Joking. Joking. No, when I look down that list, the name that stands out to me, if I kind of cover that face there, is Jed Spence.
Yeah.
Jed Spence going to a World Cup.
Yeah.
Ornstein posted and said, recent form. What recent form are we talking about?
Is the recent form in the room of us?
I said how I feel about it. So Maguire, when you look at the squad and you like have to double take and you're like looking for play, like you go back and look at a list of 5 and you're like looking for one name which is obviously not there, but you double take. So Maguire was one of those. But I double took. You know how they've got the name and then the club that they play for next to it. I when I saw Tottenham, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Didn't we all?
Who's made it in to the England squad from that team?
There's no Liverpool players.
I felt quite angry about it as well, and then I found myself, is it because we don't have anybody else and it's one of those situations?
And then you're looking at Trent not going or
That's
whatever.
just crazy to me.
But
because-
we almost knew.
Yes,
that,
that
right?
one. That's why I wasn't outraged.
But the idea that Jed Spence is there in place is just odd.
It is wild.
I think it tells me Ben White was probably going if he was fit.
Probably was. Yeah. I think he probably was.
Yeah.
Because apart from anything, Reece James, they aren't going to bank on that in his fitness, are they? So
Because it's like, I disagree with Tony, but I don't have the energy to fight for Danny Welbeck or Calvert-Lewin in his place. Once I
and
saw
that
it
player
was,
isn't going to play. The third choice striker isn't going to play.
No,
Are we
not
sure?
unless something catastrophic. Like,
Are we sure he's third choice?
I think Ollie Watkins is the next cab off the rank, isn't he?
100%.
I think after Kane. And I think Calvert-Lewin and Welbeck can probably look at, we put a season together here. Ollie Watkins has only just caught form, but he's caught form at the right time. It's just,
If I just
unlucky for
say
them.
this now, and I think we'll probably call it a day there, I saw a lot of complaints about the likes of Henderson and Madueke and these guys. These guys showed up for every single squad for the last 18 months. Madueke has played 60% of the minutes under Thomas Tuchel. This was a player that, regardless of what you think, was always going to be picked. The shock with Madueke was crazy to me. This is a guy that, if he was fit, was going to the tournament.
I think it's because Bowen didn't get the call up, I think.
But Bowen, what's he done in England? Bowen, I'm as respectful as possible, has looked garbage anytime he's played for England. He's done nothing. I've never seen him beat a man for England.
Yeah.
He might be a great bloke. If I'm him and I'm hearing that Tuchel conversation, he took the news really well. Brilliant. What the
Yeah.
hell am I supposed to take from that? I
Yeah.
took the news well that I wasn't going to be in the team.
do you think any Chelsea fans think Palmer should be in there?
Yes, and I would say to this, because it kind of gets levelled at me when I make this declaration. Noni Madueke is not a better player than Cole Palmer. Do I think he's a better player than Phil Foden? Right now, yes, I do. The Cole Palmer one, no question to me, if I want someone coming on to save my life or to win a tournament for England, it's Cole Palmer. Cole Palmer has played one game for Thomas Tuchel. He's been fit for far more of that time.
Yeah.
If you can't be fucked to turn up for these games,
Yeah.
Rashford at United, would get to this time, we'd say, is Rashford going to be in the team? No, because he hasn't played half of the games, whatever manager he was at the time. Rashford has put a body of work together, now he gets in the team. These guys, when you look at it, Jude Bellingham can afford to miss 3 camps for England.
Yeah.
Bukayo Saka can afford to miss 3 camps for England. Kwanzaa couldn't. Kwanzaa had to be there every single time.
Yeah.
And you look at whoever else you want to look at in there. Jed Spence, who's put the miles in and he's turned up for camp every single time, played the minutes.
People just saying, what's Jed Spence doing?
I don't think he should be there,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I can justify him being
But
in
you
there
knew
because
He's laid the
played-
foundation. He's laid the foundation work.
He's
in
at least
there.
given the
Yeah.
manager something to think
The
about.
Hendo
where-
one, he literally brought him back in as soon as he came as the manager, so you knew.
I think they've put a body of work together that if player A isn't there, I'm at least in the conversation for player B, and that's where I think you can't complain too much.
I think the focus on, certainly on Sky and other stuff, about Foden and Palmer as like the headline acts from the omissions from this squad.
Maguire one.
I understand those do catch the headlines, and there isn't a huge amount of creativity in there, so you can maybe pick apart that. But neither of them have played well enough this season. Neither are in good form. And if you look at people in their position who should feel shortchanged, someone like Gibbs White should be going, well, I should be the next one if someone else is. And I've said it before, but you aren't going to play. If the pundits had their way, we'd have a squad full of 10s. You aren't going to play every one of Bellingham, Rodgers, Palmer, Foden, Gibbs White.
But he can play right in it.
Eze coming in, So there isn't. And then we've seen Foden kind of stink playing that position. So
is it not as simple
someone
as
was going to fail to make the cut?
We've got players that stay wide on the wing. We've got up and down fullbacks at fullback.
Yeah.
We've got basically Declan Rice and we've got Elliot Anderson and an abundance of 8-10s. It's pretty easy to see the direction we're going in with this.
Yeah.
The players that are the hybrids, and you look at Gibbs White and Foden and Palmer, the guys that you can't say he's second in that position. Phil Foden, you can tell me how flexible he is. He's been shite in every position he's played for England. Yeah. You can be flexible and you can be shit at the same time.
Yeah.
So
that's why I think you put more emphasis on the shock of like the defence is where you need to be talking about.
The Maguire one,
Yes.
the Stones one, the Kwanzaa one, the Henderson one. They're the ones to me that you can have the complaints about. The Maguire one only really because my starting 11 for England hasn't changed based on that squad. Maguire would be the only different face I would have in there based on what I thought before this squad was announced.
I'd have had Luke Shaw in as well. I still think he's probably our best left back, and I like Nico Riley, but
it's had a good enough season for me that I can't. It's not going to keep me up.
And he's kind of proven fitness better than I thought he would as well. So I would have had him in.
It's just not one that I'm going to lose sleep over, basically.
No. And some of the ones on here, these players probably aren't going to feature, but it's just an odd. Yeah, some just odd choice. He made some selections where you're like, I think there was a point in the season where you just stopped watching games. You just stopped watching.
I almost thought for him, because when I saw Shaw out and I saw Hall out, I thought he's going to pick Lewis Skelly and he's about to get battered by everyone. And I was quite glad when he didn't get the pick. He's not going to get played, but he could do without getting cooked by everyone. And maybe as a last point to sign off on, Lewis Skelly, someone that 2 months ago, all of the rumours were that he was definitely going to be leaving Arsenal this summer, and all of the reasons they were for.
Saw him
posted his celebration yesterday, and his caption was pure profit when he posted it, and I thought, fair play to you.
Yeah, nice. Now I come selling.
Yeah, I did think that also. So that probably does us. Thank you again for tuning in to another edition of the Spitballing Pod. Thank you to Alex for being here. We've got to the bottom of why he's a Spurs fan. And we will see you next week. Will Jack be here? I don't know. Maybe it'll be a special episode. We will see what happens with this McDonald's forfeit. But regardless, I'll be here, and I'll see you next time. Adios.